1. Isabel Pierce heard the cabinet door slam shut for the 100th time. "Charlie, get out of the kitchen," she called out to her toddler son. It was no use, she knew. She left the laundry she had been folding on the couch and went to get him. Isabel, Izzy to most everyone, picked him up and took him to the living room floor, where she handed him a basket of blocks and books to play with. Maybe that will work for a few minutes, she hoped rather than believed that to be true. Upstairs she could hear her other two sons jumping around in their room, wrestling no doubt. She called up to them, "Boys, be careful. Don't hurt anyone." She tried again to finish the stack of never-ending laundry. She glanced at her phone and saw that she had another email about the school program coming up. "I have got to finish Benja's costume this week," she thought to herself. "I probably should get something to wear too," she told herself as she noticed her faded yoga pants and her yellow workout tank top that seemed to have some sort of food spot on the left shoulder. Her long blonde hair was pulled up in a messy bun today. Her mind worked on a to-do list while she folded and time slipped away from her. She smelled something strange. Was that smoke? Yelled the toddler who had climbed onto the couch and was about to tip over the backside head first. He pointed at the oven. "Oh no, not again!" Izzy shouted in frustration. She ran to the oven and yanked it open. She grabbed an oven mitt and coughed as she tried to wave away some of the smoke. She hoped the dinner might be salvageable, but once the smoke cleared, she saw that it was hopeless. The chicken in the glass baking dish was covered in black, and the green beans on the sides looked like dried-up worms. She pulled the dish out and set it on top of the stove, then ran to open a window. She thought she could make in time when she heard the shrill beep of the smoke alarm. She covered an ear with one hand while waving a towel frantically in front of the smoke detector. It was a motion she was far too familiar with. The crisis over for now, she grabbed her cell phone from the counter and called her husband. It rang and rang. "Come on, Sam, pick up." It was no use. His voicemail answered even the second time she tried. "Ah," she shook her head. Just as well, she thought, since he would probably just be mad and yell anyway. He would say I should pay more attention to what I'm doing. She grabbed her keys and picked up Charlie in the living room. "Boys, come get in the car, we're going to pick up pizza." That instruction they followed immediately. Both the older boys came bounding down the stairs, shouting and pushing each other along the way. Izzy tried to get them to be quiet while she called the pizza place and gave them her usual order. 2 hours later, the empty pizza boxes sat on the kitchen table, the food having been devoured by the boys. Izzy had fed them, helped with homework, sent the older boys for showers, bathed the youngest, and gotten everyone to bed. Now she sat on the couch, with the still unfinished laundry next to her. She barely noticed it as she stared at the wall, exhausted. There were so many tasks needing to be done, she didn't know where to start. Their home was a reasonable size for their family of 5. Their 3 boys, Benja, short for Benjamin, Wilson and Charlie, were rambunctious and needed plenty of space. Izzy had been so excited about the possibilities when the realtor told them, "It has a master on the main floor and 3 bedrooms upstairs. It has 4 bathrooms and a chef's kitchen." Izzy and Sam had envisioned family time in the cozy living room, the boys bonding as brothers upstairs, and the family enjoying gourmet meals at a big dining room table. Izzy had not imagined the boys fighting all the time, eating pizza alone on the couch, and cleaning 4 bathrooms. She glanced up at the clock now, 8:45, it read. Telling her that once again, Sam was late, and she hadn't even heard from him since her phone call about the burnt chicken. She almost picked up her phone to call him, but didn't really see the point. It was just after 9 when Sam walked in the door. "Hey," he said, his voice sounding as tired as she felt. "Hey. What's that smell?" He grumbled as he pushed toys out of the way to sit down on the couch. Izzy had tried, but the smoke smell lingered in the kitchen. "I burned dinner. I called you twice." "Sorry, I was in a meeting." He didn't sound very sorry. Izzy didn't look at him. "I have to go out of town tomorrow, I'll be gone for 3 days." Izzy gave a heavy sigh. "Okay," she said as she reached for the television remote. She flipped on a show, hoping she might find something to laugh at before she drifted off to sleep. 2. Sam Pierce sat in his small office at work. He stared at the computer as his vision went blurry from looking at the screen and from exhaustion. Sam had come in early to finish up some reports before he traveled later that day. Izzy hadn't said 2 words to him the night before, and she wasn't up when he left this morning. I know she's mad at me, but she doesn't understand the pressure I'm under. Someone has to pay the bills. When they had their first son, it had been a mutual decision for Izzy to stay home with their kids. And they still agreed that it was the right decision, but that didn't make it easy. Sam went to work every day with a weight on his shoulders to provide financially. His job as a team leader for Southern Technical Solutions had started out so much smaller. Straight out of college, he had wanted to get a job that would be a stable income since he and Izzy got married before graduation. He came on as a technician working with different crews and traveling around the state of Alabama, sometimes the country. They set up phone, internet, and computer systems for all different sizes of companies, from mom-and-pop stores to businesses with hundreds of employees. Over the years, he had done everything that was asked of him and done it well, so he began to come up for promotions. He applied for every step up that he could and had finally earned himself a position as a team leader, which meant more money, a small office, and more responsibility. All of that had meant working more hours and traveling even more than he thought. But he would do anything for his family. Maybe along the way, he had also come to enjoy the privileges of being in authority and took pride in doing well and moving up the ladder. But wasn't that normal? His cell phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. He expected it to be Izzy calling to complain about one thing or another. But he was surprised to see his dad's name. "Hey Dad," he answered after the first ring. "Hey Sam, how's everything?" Jim Pierce always spoke calmly and confidently. Sam looked around at his office. The beige-colored walls were bare except for a small bookshelf that held a few family photos, mostly his sons in their sports uniforms. His desk, made of pressed wood and stained a dark brown, took up most of the space in the room. He saw his packed bag in the chair across from him as he spoke. "Just fine, Dad. How are you?" "I'm doing better than I deserve, I suppose." Sam grinned at his dad's usual response. "Glad to hear it. What can I do for you?" "Nothing. I was just calling to check in. Haven't talked to you much lately." "I know. I'm sorry, Dad. I've just been really busy at work. I'm going out of town today." "Where to this time?" "Augusta, Georgia." "Will you be home by Saturday?" "Yeah, I'll be back before the party. Mom has already assigned me a job." His dad chuckled over the phone. "I have no doubt of that. Anything going on that I need to know about?" Sam paused before saying, "Nope, don't think so." "All right then, well son, I won't keep you. Be safe on your trip, and call me when you have time to talk longer. We'll plan on seeing you Saturday." "Yes, sir. Talk to you later, Dad." Sam hung up and sat staring at the wall. He tried to remember what his dad had been like growing up. Jim Pierce had worked in insurance sales for as long as Sam could remember. It had been a steady and predictable job in the sense that he got up at the same time every morning and came home at the same time every night. Sam didn't really know much about what he did as a kid, but as a teenager, he knew that he met with clients throughout the day. Most came to his office, some he met for lunch or at other locations around town. But he made it a point to keep his meetings during business hours. Some other agents would meet clients before or after work to accommodate their schedule, but not Jim. He made it a rule to be home for dinner with his family every night. Sam remembered his father attending a conference out of town once or twice a year, but other than that, he was always there. He knew that it had cost Jim some clients over the years, but he hadn't wavered. Must be nice to have that kind of job, Sam thought. But he pushed those thoughts aside and went back to his computer. He finished his report and sent a few emails before closing up his laptop and zipping it into his travel case. He checked his watch and saw that he was just in time to meet with his travel partner, so he grabbed his bag and computer and headed out to the parking lot. 3. "Wilson, come down here now. I need to see what you're wearing." Izzy called up to her son. She was trying to get her sons ready to leave, but no one seemed very interested in that. Your dad will be here any minute, and we need to be ready to go. At that moment, the garage door opened, and Sam came waltzing in wearing dirty jeans and polo shirt with a company logo on the front. Hey guys, he called out, and immediately the boys were in the room to greet their father. They all spoke at the same time, telling him about their week at school, sports games, bugs they had seen outside. Sam listened with rapt attention. Izzy stood and watched, arms crossed, and tapped her toe. That got Sam's attention, and he looked at her out of the corner of his eye. Hey, what's wrong? You do know we need to leave, right? Sure, I just need to get a quick shower and I'll be ready to go. Izzy rolled her eyes. I thought you would be ready when you got here. I've been running around getting them ready, and I barely got a shower myself. Sorry, I'll be quick. Izzy rolled her eyes again as he started up the stairs. I don't even want to go, she mumbled under her breath. Sam stopped in his tracks and turned to look at her. What? Nothing, she said. You don't want to go? Why not? Forget it, Izzy went back to trying to find the boys' shoes. But Sam came down the stairs after her. Why don't you want to go to Peyton's engagement party? Sam spoke with an edge in his voice. I don't know. I'm just tired and it's a lot of work. But Peyton is part of our family now, and the family wants to celebrate her. Of course they do, Izzy said, her words dripping with sarcasm. What does that mean? Sam's voice was rising in frustration. Just that your family wants to celebrate everything. What's wrong with that? Nothing, it's just a lot. And besides, Peyton isn't really our family anyway. She's your brother's wife's sister. Now Sam was visibly angry. I can't believe you would say that. You know that our family took in the whole Kelly family when Paige married Russell. They've never had any other family since their parents died. If we don't celebrate them, who will? Izzy felt a little guilty about that, but not enough to admit it. Okay, fine, we're going anyway. So just hurry up and get a shower so we can go. I don't want to be late. Sam shook his head and gave a loud sigh. Izzy knew she should apologize, but she was just too tired to think about it. Peyton Kelly checked her hair in the mirror one last time. But she wasn't really focused on the details of her long dark brown curls or her bright yellow summer dress. All she could see when she looked in the mirror was the happiness in her eyes. A year ago, she was starting her freshman year of college, working out every day as a university cheerleader, and struggling to figure out her life. She had worried she would never get herself together, and was doomed to be a hot mess forever. But here she was, preparing to start her sophomore year of college, and everything looked totally different. She was no longer a university cheerleader, after an injury caused her to lose her spot on the squad. But she had God in her life in a new and profound way, and she had Spencer, and a dream for their life together. She sighed. Thank you, God, she said out loud, just as she did every day to express her gratitude for the work he had done in her life. The sound of the doorbell reminded her that she was supposed to be ready to go. She turned off the light in her bathroom and walked down the stairs barefoot. Hey. She greeted Spencer as soon as she opened the front door, and he closed the distance to wrap her in his arms. Their lips met, and she could taste the peppermint on his breath. Come on in. She stepped back to allow him in the house. Sorry, I'm almost ready. Spencer smiled. He seemed to be used to the fact that Peyton was never ready on time. It's all right, PJ. We've got time. She smiled at his use of her nickname. It was just her initials for Peyton Jane, but no one had ever called her that before Spencer, and she felt warm all over every time he said it. I just need my shoes and my earrings and we can go, she promised. All right, I'll wait here. Spencer took a seat on the couch in the living room and winked at her as she turned to go. As promised, Peyton was back down in just a few minutes, and the two headed out the front door. Paige is already at Jim and Gladys' house, and she took the kids with her to help set up. I could have gone and helped too. Spencer opened Peyton's car door for her, and watched as she slid into the passenger seat before walking around to his side. Oh no, Paige said there's no way anyone will let us help with anything today. They just want us to enjoy it. She shrugged her shoulders. Plus, there are enough family members with the Pierces and the Kellys to get it all done. This is a big family you're marrying into, remember? He laughed. Oh, I remember. As an only child, Spencer had always wanted a brother or sister, but it just wasn't meant to be. At least until now. With the puzzle pieces of Peyton's family, however strange the actual relations might be, he was gaining a total of 6 brothers and 6 sisters. All those times I prayed for a sibling, God really does have a sense of humor. Yes, he does. But he also has some pretty good plans that I never would have come up with, so I won't complain. No complaints from me either. He reached over and squeezed her hand. None at all. They arrived at the Pierces' home, and everything was set up beautifully. Gladys was a wonderful hostess, and Peyton had been to a number of events at their home. Peyton wanted today to be simple, so they had planned a casual cookout and invited mostly family and a few close friends. They had also included Peyton and Spencer's friends from camp and their college group, Campus Community. Not many of them had been able to make it since they lived out of town, but a few had come. Everyone enjoyed hamburgers and hot dogs to go along with visiting and happy wishes for the engaged couple. As expected, Peyton and Spencer weren't allowed to do any work, but spent the party chatting with everyone, holding hands and making sweet glances at each other. After everyone had eaten, Jim Pierce got everyone's attention. Thank you all for coming to celebrate with us and with Spencer and Peyton. Gladys joined him, and the two held hands as Jim spoke. We are so thankful that God is adding to our family with Spencer. I feel like we're still whirling a little bit from Russell and Paige's wedding, so it just feels like we're continuously blessed. When we first met Spencer, I liked him right away. I might have even decided he was right for Peyton before she knew herself. Everyone laughed, and Peyton nodded her agreement with a smirk. But we're happy to walk alongside them in this time and support them as they begin their life together. Most people would say that getting married in college isn't a good idea, and it won't last. But Spencer and Peyton have a good head on their shoulders and God leading them, so we believe He will guide them in the right way. Plus, we've seen others, like Sam and Izzy, who got married in college and things seemed to work themselves out. Sam and Izzy stood across the room from each other, Izzy holding their toddler. They glanced at each other and gave less than convincing smiles to the others in the room. Anyway, thank you for celebrating with us. We would like to pray for Spencer and Peyton now if you'll join us. Around the room, everyone bowed their heads and couples linked hands, while some quieted children. Jim prayed, Dear Father, thank you for Spencer and Peyton and the way you have brought them together. Thank you for your perfect plan for their lives. We ask that you will bless them in this season as they prepare to be married and serve you together. Give them guidance and wisdom in the days to come, and what you have joined together, let no one separate. Amen. 4. Boys, it's time to get in the car. You need to have shoes on before I get out there. It was Tuesday morning and Izzy was filling a bag with snacks and water bottles to drop the older boys off at school and then take the toddler with her to their playgroup. She was looking forward to some adult conversation with the other moms, and she didn't want to be late. After one kid couldn't find his shoes, and another had a form that needed to be signed for school, and the toddler had to have an emergency diaper change, they missed the drop-off line at school, and Izzy had to walk the boys in and sign them in at the office. Her goal of being on time seemed like a daydream. Nevertheless, she made it to the park and took a deep breath as Charlie climbed the slide and she was able to take a seat. One of those mornings, said Heather, one of the other moms. She wore a tank top and athletic shorts, and her brown hair was up in a ponytail. Izzy gave a half smile. I don't know the last time I had a morning that wasn't one of those. I hear you, said Katie. Sierra was up half the night. That's what coffee is for, Courtney, the self-appointed leader of the mom group, spoke up. I could use some coffee, Izzy said. Sam usually makes it before he leaves for work, but he's out of town this week. Again, asked Katie. This is like the 3rd week in a row. Yep, tell me about it, Izzy rolled her eyes. Is he ever home? Courtney asked, her eyebrows lifted to show her disapproval. Well, lately, not much. He has been gone the last 3 weeks, but not the whole week. Sometimes it's only 3 or 4 days. Still, Courtney went on, you're practically a single parent most of the time. Izzy started to say that it wasn't really that bad, but stopped herself. Maybe it is that bad. She let that thought sit in her mind just long enough that it began to take root. Yeah, I guess you're right, she found herself agreeing with Courtney. I wouldn't put up with that, Courtney said. I would tell him he can help me out and be a parent, or he can pay child support when I leave him. The other moms mumbled their agreements. Izzy hadn't known the other women very long. She had come to the park one day to let Charlie play, and the other moms had been hanging out. She started chatting, and they invited her to join their Moms Anonymous group that met every Tuesday morning at the park. They had admitted then that they mostly talked about their kids and husbands, and Izzy had found from the beginning that most of it was complaining about being a mom, and negative comments about their husbands. She hadn't planned to become like that, but the more she was around them, the more she felt their lives were similar, and they understood things like her kids making her late and her husband not helping around the house. Since then, she had found herself airing her grievances along with them. I don't think I'm ready to say that, Izzy said. I just wish he was home more. Honey, you'll spend your whole life wishing for that and never get it. You gotta demand what you want from him, or tell him to hit the road, said Yvonne. She was a vocal member of the group, and Izzy couldn't remember if she was married to her second or third husband. Izzy didn't want to continue this line of conversation. Have y'all heard about the new shopping center they're building? She asked. The other women jumped on that topic like a pack of hyenas. They discussed what store they hoped would be in the complex, and how they could go shopping together and have lunch dates when all the kids were in school. Izzy sat quietly watching the kids on the playground. She could hear the conversation, but she wasn't interested in it. Sam could be worse, she thought to herself. I guess he tries. He's just absent a lot. And I wish he didn't complain about how I do everything when he's not there. And that he didn't act like I have the easy job being at home. Her little blonde boy was happily smiling as he sat and played in the dirt. He glanced up at her and waved his chubby little hand, and Izzy's heart warmed at the sight. She was tired, yes, but she didn't want her youngest to be off at school just yet, like the other moms in the group were wishing. And she didn't want to think about him growing up, only seeing his dad on the weekends. Still, she didn't want to feel like a single mom when she was married. She determined that it was time to talk with Sam. And even if he wasn't home, she needed to do it tonight. Sam sat on the hotel bed eating Chinese takeout out of a styrofoam container. He had flipped the TV on to a primetime drama, but he was barely watching it. When his phone rang, he muted the TV and answered with his mouth full. Hey, he said. Hey, Izzy's voice came over the phone. Are you eating? Yep, gourmet dinner tonight. That must be nice, she said sarcastically. I had spaghetti with the kids. I was just kidding. I'm having Chinese and it's kind of terrible. Oh well. What's up? Sam asked after a long silent pause. Just seeing how you're doing. I'm fine, just a long day. My crew was busy from sunup to sundown. I know about that kind of hours. I'm sure you do. What is that supposed to mean? Izzy spoke with an edge in her voice. Nothing, I was just agreeing with you. I wanted to talk to you about something. Here we go, Sam thought. Okay, what's up? He said casually, even though he felt this was about to be anything but casual. I've just been feeling like a lot of the weight of the house and parenting is falling on me. There it was, the bomb he expected her to drop. I can't help the hours that I work, Izzy. She sighed loudly. We've been over this before. If you want to be at home with the boys, I have to work, and this is what working looks like. I know. I just don't know if I can keep going like this. We agreed that the kids and the house would be your job. You have all day. I don't know what the problem is. I know, it's just a lot. So what do you suggest we do? Sam sounded exasperated. I don't know, I just need some help. I just wish you could be at home more. At least when you're in town. You know I don't have any control over that. Maybe it's time we consider other options. Sam felt his blood pressure begin to rise. They had talked about him finding another job a few times, but that wasn't an option for him. We've been over that too. I've worked hard to get to where I am. I started at the bottom and worked my way up. I did that for you and the boys. And I'm not going to give that up. I could become a supervisor next year. What do you want me to do? Start at the bottom all over again? There was another long pause before Izzy spoke again. I don't know. All I know is that this isn't working. Something needs to change. I can't work less, and I'm not looking for another job. So you're saying that nothing is going to change then? I don't see that happening. Izzy sighed again. All right then, I'm glad we cleared that up. I'm tired, and I still have things to do before I go to bed. I'll talk to you later, Sam. Bye. With that, she was gone. Sam sat in the quiet and stared at the food in his lap. What does she want me to do? He thought. She's being unreasonable and has no idea how hard I work for this family. Things will get better when the kids are older. With that settled in his mind, he turned up the volume and went back to eating his cold dinner. 5. Late Thursday night, Izzy sat on the couch. Sam was due home any minute. And she was prepared. She sat calmly in the quiet of the house, since the boys were all asleep. She had worked tirelessly since they were in bed to clean up the kitchen and get dinner put away. She had even managed to clear the laundry from the couch. The sound of the garage door made her heart beat fast. She had been psyching herself up for this all afternoon, with the words from her mom's group playing in her head. Sam walked in and said hi. He flopped down on the couch beside her and ran his fingers through his hair. Izzy could smell his cologne mixed with the smell of a little sweat. It had always reminded her of how hard he worked, but now it just caused resentment. He had dropped his bag by the door when he came in, and now Izzy pointed to it as she spoke calmly but clearly, I don't think you should bother unpacking that. He gave a little chuckle. I know I've barely unpacked it this month, but I don't think I'm traveling next week, can you believe that? Actually, I can't. But that's not what I meant. You might want to gather a few more things to take with you. Sam sat up straight now and stared at her wide-eyed and serious. What are you talking about? I told you, I don't think this is working anymore, and I can't go on like this. Since you have made it clear that nothing is going to change, I think it's best if you move out. What? He nearly shouted, but managed to keep his voice down so the boys wouldn't wake up. Izzy, you're talking crazy. I'm not moving out. Don't call me crazy. You're never here anyway. I'm basically a single parent, and I'm tired of waiting and hoping that you're going to be home and things are going to get better. So I think it's time we just cut to the chase, and I'll just be a single parent for real. Sam was obviously reeling. Izzy, come on, let's talk about this. I tried to talk about this with you. Her voice was still calm, as if she had thought this through and made a decision. I asked you if we could make some changes, and you said no. So I'm making my own change. We don't have to tell anybody right now. You can just take your bag and go to a hotel. I know you've got enough reward points. We will just say that you're traveling, like always. Izzy, you are not serious. Her eyes turned fiery as she looked him straight in the face. I absolutely am serious. I want you to take your bag and go. I'm going to bed. With that, she stood and walked up the stairs. Sam watched Izzy go up the stairs. He couldn't move. He could barely breathe. What just happened? He thought. He sat frozen like a statue, staring at the stairs. He must have been there for 10 minutes when he saw the upstairs light go off. Then he heard the bedroom door close and the lock turn. Was she serious? Locking him out of his own room and telling him to leave his own house? Surely she would cool off before the morning. With that thought in mind, he laid down and fell asleep on the couch. The next morning he was up early, so he showered in the guest bathroom and dressed in clothes from his travel bag. He was gone before anyone else was awake and decided maybe that was best for now. He would be back that night, and he could talk to Izzy then. 6. What sounds good? Peyton asked Paige. The two sisters were having lunch in the restaurant at the country club where Paige and her husband, Russell, both worked. I think I'll just have a sandwich. Sounds good, I'm pretty hungry. What's the lunch special today? Paige wrinkled her nose. Some kind of fish, James told me, but I don't remember. I thought you liked fish? Yeah, I do, just doesn't sound good today. Okay, I think I'll have a cheeseburger. Paige waved at the waitress who came and took their orders, then left them to talk. So, have you two decided on a date yet? I think so, Peyton beamed with excitement. We had been planning to have the wedding in the summer, but now we're thinking about the Saturday before spring break. We thought we could take a short honeymoon during spring break, and then we can do something else after school gets out and before summer camps start. That sounds exciting. Paige looked a little concerned. Are you sure you'll be able to keep up with school and wedding planning? I think so. I don't have another math class this semester, thank goodness. And we want to keep the wedding simple anyway. We just want to have a ceremony and celebrate with our friends and family. And we don't want to wait forever to get married. I can understand that, Paige smiled at her sister. When Spencer proposed, I wasn't expecting it that soon, not when I had just finished my first year of college. But that seemed right. And then I thought maybe we would just be engaged while we finished school, but that seems like a really long time. And it doesn't seem like a good enough reason to wait to finish school. Since Spencer is already on scholarship, and we can live in the dorm apartments, it just feels like it will work out. Paige reached out and put her hand on top of Peyton's. I'm sure it will. I don't know if it will be the easiest thing, but if there's anything I have learned from being engaged and then married, it's worth figuring it out together. Thanks, Paige. That means a lot to me for you to say that. Paige seemed to tear up but brushed it away. Enough emotional stuff. Let's talk about details. Where do you want to have the wedding? At the church. I thought about asking if we could have it at the club, but I don't want to just copy your wedding, and it's really important to Spencer to get married in a church. Plus, it won't cost us anything. I'm sure the church will be beautiful. Did you find out if it's available? I did. Aren't you proud of me being so organized? I am. Maybe my skills are rubbing off on you, Paige teased. Yes, I think so. I asked them to pencil the date in for us, but we're just waiting to make sure that Spencer's parents can come. Gotcha, when will they know that? Should be this week. They just needed to check with the other mission staff, and they want to check flight costs before they commit. That's understandable. And speaking of his parents, there is a good possibility that we will go to Peru for Christmas. Oh. I really wanted to meet his parents before the wedding, and that's the only time that works. Plus, I don't want to keep Spencer from going to visit them since he doesn't see them often, and I don't want him to go without me. But I'm really sorry that I will probably miss Christmas at home. Paige's eyes were sad. That's all right. We will miss you both, but it's just part of it. It comes along with having two families. I know, but it's not for sure yet, so let's not talk about it. Besides, I want to ask you something important. All right. I don't know if I've ever thanked you for being the best big sister I could ever ask for. And not only that, but you were a parent too, and put up with me as a teenager. And now I feel like we're just sisters again, but I'll still probably always ask you for advice. But I can't think of anybody I would rather have beside me at my wedding. Would you be my matron of honor? Paige's eyes brimmed over with tears. Of course I will. I love being your sister, and I'm so glad God gave us each other. I'm so happy for you and Spencer. Now we will get to be married sisters, together. I know. It's going to be so fun. There's just one thing though, Paige bit her bottom lip. Peyton's face clouded with concern. What? Is something wrong? No, nothing's wrong. I just hope you won't mind your matron of honor having a giant belly. Peyton furrowed her eyebrows in confusion. What are you talking about? You're tiny. Paige laughed at her sister's cluelessness. Thanks, but by March I'm pretty sure I will be huge. It took a moment, but finally understanding dawned and Peyton's mouth fell wide open. Paige, are you serious? Yes, I'm pregnant, she whispered. Eek! Peyton screamed and jumped up to hug her sister. Shush, keep it down, we haven't told anyone else yet, Paige said as she was squished by her sister's arms. Oh, I'm just so excited to be getting married and that you said yes to being my maid of honor. Peyton spoke a little louder than normal, trying to cover the real reason for her excitement. Then quietly she said, Oh, Paige, I'm so happy for you. And Russell? What does he think? Paige blushed. He's thrilled. And I am too, a little overwhelmed maybe, but thrilled. You? Overwhelmed? I don't believe it. Peyton waved her hand in disbelief. Well, believe it. I mean, we wanted to have our own kids, but we already have you getting married, Shep's still in high school, Zoe in junior high, and the twins in middle school. So a baby feels a little overwhelming. I'm sure, but Paige, you will be an amazing mom. You have a ton of experience, but not with it really being your own child. You need to have that experience too. I know, I'm so thankful and we are so happy. It will just be another adjustment. There is a lot of that going around. But like you said, you can figure it all out together. Yes. Yes, we will. 7. It had been a week since Izzy had told Sam to pack a bag. She had just dropped off the boys at school and headed to playgroup. The boys thought Sam was out of town on another work trip. Of course, Sam hadn't believed she was serious at first. She thought back to the day after when he came home early from work. Izzy met him at the door with the bag she had packed for him. Izzy, come on. You don't really want this, Sam had said. Yes, I do. I don't know what I want to happen, but I need some time to think about it. If you're not going to be involved in our family, then maybe I just need to figure out how to do it on my own. I don't know, but this is what I want right now. Please just go. And Sam had gone. He seemed sad, but Izzy didn't allow it to get to her then. Now as she drove to the playground, she thought about how his face had fallen at her request. Still she held her resolve. Once she had Charlie playing on the playground and her bag of snacks situated, she took a seat with the other moms. How's everything? It was as if Courtney knew something was up and was ready to pounce on the news. Izzy thought about hiding it, but hadn't they been the ones to encourage her? After all, they were the only people she could tell. I told Sam I wanted some time. I packed his bag and sent him out of the house. Good for you, Courtney practically cheered. I wasn't sure you had it in you. But that's what I would have done. He seemed shocked. Of course he did. Men never know how good they've got it until you take it away. But I think it's time to teach him a lesson. If he comes back groveling, good. If not, kick him to the curb. The other moms weren't as vocal, but they nodded in agreement. Izzy felt a knot in her stomach. Was she really willing to do that? I'm not sure. I just want things to be better. But if they aren't going to change, then, she shrugged. That's right, Courtney spoke again. You decide what you want and you go after it. And if you're not getting what you want, then maybe it's time to move on. Izzy didn't say anything else. She could hear the other moms going on about their ex-husbands, but she didn't join in. She began to think about whether she wanted ex-husband to be part of her vocabulary. Sam sat on the one chair in his small hotel room. He was tired from tossing and turning in the uncomfortable bed. I don't know where Izzy thinks we're getting the money to pay for a hotel. He had tried to find the cheapest option, but they still couldn't afford it for long. He had considered going to his parents' house, but he knew they would tell him to go back home. He had tried that already. He pushed away the fast food wrapper from the burger he had eaten and leaned his head back in his chair. Has it really gotten that bad? He thought to himself. He honestly didn't know. He had been working a lot, sure, and the travel had gotten to be more than he had expected. But was he really no help with the kids? He loved them and tried to spend time with them when he was home. I'm just not home much. He sighed. But that's what it took to provide financially for his family. Izzy will have to learn to appreciate that. With that thought, he stood from the chair and changed into gym clothes, hoping a workout in the hotel gym would clear his head. Just as he was about to walk out the door, his phone rang. Fumbling with his car keys and hotel keycard, he answered. "Hey Jack," he greeted his brother. "Sambo, what's up?" Not much. I was just about to go for a run." "Are you in town? You could come play basketball with me and Russell instead." Sam carefully considered his answer. He didn't know if he should admit that he was in town in case Izzy had said otherwise. But she probably hadn't talked to his family, so he told the truth. "Yep, I'm in town." "Where are you meeting?" "The rec center." 15 minutes? Sounds good. All right, see you then." Sam was at the rec center in less than 15 minutes, since the hotel was just down the street. He tried to waste time by stopping to get a bottle of water, but he still beat his brothers there. He was waiting for them in the locker room when Jack and Russell walked in together. "Hey, sorry we didn't mean to keep you waiting. I thought you were at home, so I took my time picking up Jack at his house." "How did you get here before us?" Russell asked. Sam shrugged. "Hit all the red lights just right, I guess." "You guys ready?" "Yep," Jack said as he led the way out the door and into the basketball gym. There were a couple of guys playing on the far court, but no one on the first court. "I was surprised when Jack said you were coming. Paige called Izzy to invite y'all to dinner Thursday, but Izzy said she didn't know if you would be back in town." Sam's heart pounded as he tried to come up with an explanation. "I think she meant out of town, not back in town. I might be leaving tomorrow to be out of town the rest of the week." "Oh, gotcha. That's probably what she said. Paige must have misunderstood." Russell tossed Sam the basketball and seemed satisfied with that answer. For a while the brothers played, and the only talk was basketball. They were unevenly matched with three, so they took turns playing one-on-one, changing out every time someone scored. They played for an hour straight before taking a break. They walked to the bleachers and took drinks from their water bottles. "So, where are you going tomorrow, Sam?" Jack asked. "Huh?" Sam didn't hide the confused look on his face. "You said you might be going out of town tomorrow?" "Oh yeah, Sam didn't want to lie outright. He hadn't been completely dishonest, since there was always a chance he could go out of town the next day, but he wasn't ready to make something up. He hung his head, but this was Izzy's idea, not his, and he wouldn't go along with it. Jack and Russell waited for him to speak, concerned looks on their faces. "What is it, Sam?" "I don't have any plans to go out of town tomorrow. And Izzy probably did tell Paige that I was already out of town. But that's because I spent last night at a hotel up the road." "What? Why?" Jack asked, his face showing his shock. "Izzy asked me to go." "She told you to leave your house? What happened?" "I'm not sure. I think she's mad that I'm gone so much, and she says I don't help when I'm home. But I have to work to support our family. I don't know, she's just mad, I think." The brothers fell silent. Jack and Russell exchanged glances. Finally Jack spoke. "Sam, you have to go back home." "I tried. She told me to pack a bag and go. But I slept on the couch, and when I got home from work the next day, she handed me a bag at the door and told me not to come in." "You can't give up that easily," Russell agreed. "I'm not giving up. I think she just needs some space and time to cool off. It's been a rough couple of months, but she'll come around." "And what if she doesn't?" Jack said. Sam shook his head. "I'm not even thinking about that. It will be all right. Sit down, Sam." Jack took a seat on the bleacher and motioned for Sam to do the same. Reluctantly, Sam sat. He waited. "Sam, you've always been easygoing, and things seem to work out for you. And I'm glad. But this is something you can't wait around to see what will happen. If you do that, you'll wake up and be living away from your wife and kids for the long haul." "I won't let that happen," Sam insisted. "Then you have to go home and fight for your marriage." "Oh, we've done plenty of fighting," Sam mumbled. "But you've been fighting against each other, I bet." "You have to fight in the same direction," Russell said. And how do I do that? You have to win her heart. Nah, I did that already. Did you? Jack said, I remember when you two met. I know you have been together for a long time. But winning her over was pretty easy for you in the beginning, remember? Sam did remember. But he hadn't thought back that far in a long time. Sam and Izzy had been in high school together. He could remember the very first time he talked to her. He had come off the court from a basketball game, and Izzy had been sitting on the bleachers the whole time. He had seen her from the bench, not during the game when nothing could distract him. But he saw how she intently watched the game, cheered on the team, and booed the ref for a bad call. He had immediately thought she was pretty, but her interest in actually watching the game was what caught his attention. Sam didn't have a shy bone in his body, so he walked right up to her when the game was over. So you didn't like the ref much, huh? I would have if he called anything right, she said, her eyes lit up with the excitement of the game. And you knew all the right calls then? I saw them, and I call it like I see it. Me too. I'm Sam Kelly. Isabel Collins. Izzy for short. Izzy, I like that. Thanks, she said confidently. I have to shower off, but want to grab a milkshake. My treat. He smiled his best smile. Izzy looked him over, seeming to size him up. I've heard about you, you know. Oh. And what have you heard? That you like to have fun, and you're not to be taken seriously. Sam rubbed his chin. Well, I do like to have fun, he looked her directly in the eyes, but I can be serious when I want to be. She met his gaze with equal intensity. Me too. So milkshakes then? Sure, why not? They went for milkshakes. And after the next game, it was dinner. Then it was a movie on Saturday night. On and on it went. They were together from that time on. They were compatible and easygoing. Sure, they had had some disagreements and bumps in the road. They were both strong-headed and opinionated. But they seemed to go with the flow and work it out as they went. When they got married their freshman year of college, so many people said they were too young and it wouldn't work. But Sam had been committed to Izzy more than anything else, so they made it work. Sam was brought back to the present by the sound of Russell dribbling a basketball. You didn't have to fight for Izzy back then. Jack and I know a little something about fighting for a girl. Jack nodded. Yep. You know how long I had to ask Carrie out before she agreed to date. And Russell had to patiently wait for Paige to trust him. But Izzy liked you right off the bat, and you two were a couple without even trying. But Sam, now is the time for you to fight for her. You have to pursue her and win her heart in a way you might not have before. Sam nodded slowly. Maybe you're right. Thanks, guys. I'm not sure what the next step is. But I promise I'll think about what you said. For now, let's get back to basketball. Jack and Russell seemed reluctant to return to the game, with their concerns looming. But Sam headed to the court and started taking shots on his own. He hadn't thought about fighting and winning Izzy's heart in a long time. But he had told her something before, and he knew it was still true. He could be serious when he wanted to be. 8. Izzy stepped out of the car, ready to turn and unbuckle the toddler in the back seat. She gasped when she ran into a man standing right beside her van. Her heart pounded in shock and embarrassment mixed with fear at the nearness of a stranger. She looked up and met the eyes of her husband. Sam, she practically yelled. What in the world? She felt her emotion change from fear to anger in a second. Hey, I came to see the play. I thought I could help you get the kids out. She squinted her eyes at him. All right, it's just Charlie and Wilson. Benja is already here getting ready. That's what I thought. I've already been inside, Mom and Dad are here and we saved seats for you. Really? She didn't hide her surprise and continued to eye him suspiciously. Yep. Center aisle and everything. Thanks, Izzy mumbled. Just let me get the diaper bag and we can go in. I've got it. Sam reached behind her to grab the backpack-style bag. He quickly unbuckled Charlie and scooped him up in his other arm. We're good, you grab Wilson and I'll wait for you. Okay. Izzy hesitantly walked to the other side of the van and opened the door. Wilson jumped out and ran to hug Sam around the waist. Daddy? Hey, buddy. Ready to go see Grandma and Grandpa? Yes. Let's go then. Sam turned and began walking toward the school building with Wilson at his side. Izzy stood for a moment and watched them. She couldn't remember the last time Sam had carried Charlie. And the diaper bag? What is he up to? She thought. She ran her fingers through her hair and locked the van before following him. We'll talk about this later. The school play went off without a hitch. Everyone applauded Benja in the role of Peter Pan, the boy who didn't want to grow up. As the final curtain fell, Izzy plastered a smile on her face. He was wonderful, Gladys exclaimed, sounding like the proud grandma that she was. Thank you, Izzy said. He has worked very hard. She glanced over at Sam, who was holding a sleeping Charlie on his shoulder. Thanks for coming, Mom, Sam whispered. Of course, we wouldn't have missed it. Gladys leaned over and kissed Charlie's forehead. I thought we might grab a bite to eat afterward, but I guess we need to get home and put Charlie to bed, right, Iz? Izzy stood puzzled. Was he serious? Had he planned to go out to eat? Or was he using Charlie as an excuse to hide from his parents? What was going on? She assumed the latter. Yes, probably best. She avoided looking at Sam. Some other time then, Jim spoke up. We'll just stay to congratulate Benja before we go. Oh yes, he will want to see you, Izzy said. I can stay and wait on him if you want to take Charlie home. Or I can take him and you can stay with Benja. Whichever you want, Sam met Izzy's stare. No, that's all right. We can just wait. Are you sure? I can bring home Chinese. Sam raised his eyebrows, tempting her with her favorite food. What is he doing? Izzy wondered again. She leveled her gaze at him. The younger boys ate before we came, and they had food for the cast before the play. So it's just me, I can make something at home. I'll just wait. All right, sounds good. Jim and Gladys chatted with Sam while they waited for Benja to come out. Izzy watched him in disbelief. What is this act he's putting on? She thought. And in front of his parents, too. Oh, we will talk about this for sure. Benja came out just then, still dressed in his costume and beaming with pride. Everyone fawned over him. You were fantastic, Gladys said as she hugged him tight. Izzy hugged him too and told him how proud she was. She moved back to allow the others to congratulate him, hoping they would be out of there soon. Finally, they all made it back to the van. Sam carried Charlie and Izzy waited until the boys were loaded, and Sam had buckled Charlie into his seat and shut the door. I can still pick up some dinner, Sam said. What do you think you're doing? Izzy's eyes narrowed as she spoke. What do you mean? You show up here, acting like you're trying out for Father of the Year. You weren't even supposed to be here. Why not? Because you're pretending I'm out of town? Well, I'm not going to miss my son's play for a lie. Izzy shook her head. All right, I guess not. But then you want to be helpful all of the sudden? Yes. I do want to be helpful. I'm trying here, Izzy. It's a little late for that. Maybe so, but I'm here, and I'm going to try. It's not enough, Sam. You can't show up at one school event and carry a diaper bag and expect me to fall for you. You wanted things to change. So I'm trying to change. I wanted you to want to change because you want to be better. But you said things weren't going to change. It wasn't an ultimatum to get you to shape up. I'm done, Sam. We have hashed it out enough times and nothing changes. I'm moving on. I have been doing it without your help for a long time, and I don't want your help anymore. Sam looked like he wanted to say something, but he didn't. He stepped back as Izzy reached for the door. Before she opened it, she turned and quietly said, You can come by the house and say goodnight to the boys. But you can leave when they go to sleep. Then she stepped in the van and drove away. An hour and a half later, she had gotten the boys to bed. She changed into leggings and an oversized shirt and pulled her hair up in a messy bun. She hung up the new dress she had bought for tonight. It was the first time in a long time she had been dressed up and fixed her hair and makeup. Once she heard Sam's car crank and pull out of the driveway, she descended the stairs and made her way to the kitchen, planning to fix herself a sandwich. Just as she reached to open the refrigerator, something on the table caught her eye. There was a white takeout box at her place and a fresh glass filled with water and ice. She opened the box to reveal her standard Chinese food order, still piping hot. With a heavy sigh, she collapsed into the chair and began to eat. As she pushed around the sesame chicken with her fork, the box shifted and a bright pink sticky note showed from underneath. She moved the box to read the words and her breath caught in her throat. It read, "You looked beautiful tonight. Enjoy your dinner. Sam." 9. "Are you ready for this?" Spencer asked Peyton as he opened her car door and waited for her to step out. "Sure. How bad can it be?" She gave him a wide smile. Her light purple shirt made her hazel eyes look light green, and her dark hair hung around her shoulders in soft waves. "I don't know," Spencer shrugged, but his eyes showed his teasing. "Premarital counseling can be rough." "True, but I think we can handle it." She took his hand and laced her fingers with his as they walked through the church office door of Pine Haven Community Church. "Hey guys, right on time," Pastor Owen greeted them in the office foyer. "Ready to get started?" "We were just discussing that." "Pretty sure we're ready," Spencer said. "Come on in then," Pastor Owen motioned towards his office door. The couple walked through together and took a seat on the couch. Peyton had never been in the pastor's office before. The dark leather couch was comfortable enough, but had probably seen better days. The desk in the back half of the office was covered with papers and books. In fact, books were all over the office. 3 tall bookshelves held as many books as the shelves could handle. Peyton wondered if Pastor Owen had read them all. "So I hear you two have set a wedding date." Owen took a seat in the wingback chair adjacent to the couch. "We have." Peyton beamed as she looked at her fiancé. "March 21st. "That's good. I've never been a fan of long engagements. We considered waiting until the summer, but this seems better." "I'm happy for you. Usually I meet with couples about 12 times, unless there are special circumstances or we decide more counseling is needed. I know we will need to work around your school schedules and meet some on the weekends since you're not close by. Peyton, I'm sure you'll be home for weekends. Spencer, will you be able to be in town too?" "Yes, sir. Gladys and Jim Pierce have offered to let me stay with them anytime." "That's great. I'm so glad that your families are supportive and involved, and that the Pierces have taken all of you in." "We're so thankful for them," Peyton said, and she meant it with all her heart. There had been a time when she wasn't so fond of her sister's in-laws being a big part of their family. But once she had seen how they cared for all her siblings, she was glad to be a part of their bigger family. Owen talked about scheduling for a few minutes, and they went over their calendars to pick some dates they could meet. "Now that's out of the way, let's dive in, shall we?" Peyton and Spencer nodded. "First, let's pray." He bowed his head, and Peyton and Spencer did the same. "Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this couple. Thank you that you've brought them together, and that you are the creator of marriage. I pray that you would bless our time together and give me wisdom as I speak to them about your design and plan for the marriage relationship. Amen." "Amen," Spencer whispered as he squeezed Peyton's hand. "Now then, first things first. This is the book I use for all premarital counseling sessions. There are 12 chapters, so unless we get stuck on a particular topic, we will plan to do 1 chapter at each of our sessions." "Sounds good," Peyton said, taking the book Pastor Owen handed her. She couldn't help thinking how easy this would be. Read a book and talk about marriage with her future husband. She just knew they would sail right through each chapter in 12 sessions, no problem. Today we will just talk in general about marriage expectations and roles of each spouse. So Spencer, let's start with the role of the husband. Tell me what you think the role of the husband is in the marriage. Spencer cleared his throat. Well, I think the husband is the head of the house and the family, and that makes it his job to protect and serve, and to provide financially for the family. Okay, that's a good place to start. Peyton, what do you think? She smiled at Spencer. Yeah, I think that's pretty much right. Good, we will come back to that more. But let's keep going with Peyton. What do you think the wife's role is? To be who God made her to be. And to be supportive and helpful to her husband. And to work together with him. We're a team. Yes, good. Spencer, would you agree? Yes? Great, that should be easy, right? Spencer and Peyton gave nervous laughs, not knowing what to say. But let's talk about what that looks like practically, and specifically how you want to handle those roles. Have you talked about that between yourselves? Maybe a little, not really though. Peyton looked a little guilty. Pastor Owen held his hand up. That's all right, that's one of the things we're here for. We can talk about things together and give you a starting place, and you can continue the conversations on your own. Peyton nodded. Spencer, what does it mean practically for you to be the financial provider? Well, normally I think it means that it's the husband's job to work and make sure the family's financial needs are met. But in our situation, we're starting out a little differently. We'll both still be in school and we both have scholarships, plus Peyton's family is still helping pay for school. So I'm not sure how that will look. I'm still planning to work part-time, and we both will work in the summer. But our families are helping us out in the beginning because they still plan to help with school costs. MMHMM. And what do you think about that? Spencer seemed to search for words. I think it's good. I mean, it's not how I thought I would start out marriage. I always thought I would be done with college and settled in a job before I got married, but God had other plans. We both feel that now is the right time to get married. Peyton, what about you? Yeah, I agree. We didn't feel like we should wait to graduate, and that be the only reason. But it is different than I imagined. And if your families weren't going to help you financially with school, what would you do? Peyton and Spencer looked at each other. I guess we haven't thought much about that, since they are helping. That's fine. Just a question. So what will be your plan when you graduate? We are in the application process with a sports ministry that we hope to work with. If they accept us, we will work with them in the summers until we graduate, and then hopefully work with them full-time after that. I see, both of you? Owen asked. Yes, both of us. Is the ministry a salary position, or will you raise your own support as missionaries? It's half and half. The ministry pays a partial salary, and then we will raise funds to make up the rest of what we need. That's helpful. Yes, it is, Spencer said. And Peyton, have you talked about down the road, if you have children, how you will divide up the roles? Peyton blushed at the mention of children. Not really. I want to be involved with Spencer's ministry, and we don't know what that will look like then. But my mom was a stay-at-home mom, so I've always thought I would want to be at home with my kids. Spencer smiled. Sounds good to me. So what does that look like at home? Spencer, let's say Peyton is at home with the kids, you've been working all day and you come home just before dinner time. What are you expecting and what are you going to do when you get there? I'm expecting a lovely wife and children who I will be excited to see when I get there. We can sit down to dinner and enjoy a nice meal together. Then spend time together as a family in the evening. And Peyton has cooked dinner and taken care of the children and the house, right? I guess. Sure, Peyton smiled. So let's imagine that you've come home from work and you're tired. But the kids have been a little crazy that day, and there are toys all over the floor, and dinner isn't even started yet, and Peyton is on the verge of tears. Then what do you do? Spencer laughed. Order pizza? Owen laughed too. Not bad for starters. Peyton shrugged. I like pizza. My point is that you need to talk about how you want to divide responsibilities. And it might change at different points in your marriage. But if Spencer is going to be the sole breadwinner, is Peyton totally responsible for cleaning the house and cooking the meals and such? Or does Peyton still want to work sometimes, and is Spencer going to be in charge of dishes and cleaning the bathrooms? Peyton and Spencer looked at each other, smiling nervously. Obviously, they hadn't talked about this. You don't have to decide it all right now, and you don't have to tell me for sure. It's just something I think you should talk about together. Like I said, it might not look the same every year of your marriage, but having a general idea what your expectations are for each other and for yourselves will be helpful. I guess we have some things to talk about, Peyton smiled, still feeling like they could handle this. But realizing that they might need to talk as much about their marriage as they were about their wedding. 10. Izzy loaded the last dish into the dishwasher and started it, before placing her hand on the counter and pausing to catch her breath. She rubbed her pounding head and hoped she wasn't coming down with something. I don't have time for that now, she told herself. She grabbed a sip of water and hurried on upstairs to get the boys moving and out the door. She had them loaded in the car and ran back in to grab her purse. When she came back to the garage, she was startled to see Sam standing in the doorway. Goodness, she yelled as her hand went to her throat. Sam, why do you keep doing that? Doing what? He asked. Showing up unexpectedly and scaring me to death. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I thought you were expecting me. I'll text you next time. I came to meet you here so we could drive to my parents' house together. Oh, she sighed, all right. She handed him the keys to the van and went to the passenger side to climb in. Hello, by the way, he grinned at her. Hello, she said curtly. How was your day? Fine. She crossed her arms and pressed her lips together. They rode the rest of the way without speaking to each other. The boys made up for their lack of conversation. They arrived at the Pierce's house amidst the usual flurry of activity. The boys ran off to join their cousins, and Izzy offered to help in the kitchen while Sam joined in the conversation with his brothers. Everyone was there, including Paige and all her siblings. Once dinner was ready, Gladys called for everyone to join them in the kitchen to pray. Everyone knew the routine from so many family dinners, so they gathered around quickly. Jim was about to speak when Russell interrupted. Dad, do you mind if I pray over the food? Jim seemed surprised but said, Of course, son, go ahead. Thanks. Everybody, let's bow our heads. He held Paige's hand firmly in his, but Izzy noticed he didn't close his eyes when everyone else did. Dear Father, thank you for allowing us to be here together tonight. Thank you for family and thank you for this food, and I pray that you would bless it. And thank you for the little baby that you have given to Paige and I. Around the room, everyone's heads popped up and eyes opened. Gladys squealed and raised her hands high in the air. What? Jack yelled. Seriously? Sam added. Amen, Russell shouted. Gladys and Jim rushed to hug Paige and Russell, and others followed. There were many congratulations and questions about the due date. The room buzzed with the excitement, so much so that Izzy slipped away into the bathroom without anyone noticing. She gripped the counter as she leaned over and stared at herself in the mirror. She would be happy for them, of course. That was great news, and everyone should be happy. But right now, all she could think about was the family gatherings with good news and happiness for everyone else. Peyton and Spencer with their freshly engaged googly eyes, and now Russell and Paige glowing with a baby on the way. Why does everyone else's life seem full of happiness? And how did my happily ever after end up here, she wondered. Wasn't she like them once? Thinking life would turn out great. But now she didn't think she would recognize herself from that time. Now she looked in the mirror and saw a tired, worn-out mom and a lonely wife. How did I get here? She said out loud, Who am I? She tried to remember what it felt like to be young and happy. But the thought seemed far away. She couldn't remember back past the diapers, the sleepless nights, the cleaning and the busyness. I love my kids, she barely whispered as a single tear began to trail down her cheek. I do, she said to the mirror. But I don't remember what it was like to not be a mom and a wife. And as the doubts and insecurities crept into her heart, she straightened herself up and heard herself say, It's time I remembered, and it's time I got back to being me. Whatever it takes. She wiped away the single tear and hardened herself against the sadness. With one last look at her tired eyes, she determined it was time to do something about it. Her mind reeled with ideas on where to start, but she walked from the bathroom knowing she didn't want to be the same anymore. 11. A few days after the party, Sam cut the engine of his car and sat in the driveway of his own house. He took several deep breaths before considering getting out and going to the front door. He was just about to open the car door when he remembered that he had told Izzy he would let her know if he was coming by. He quickly sent a text letting her know he was stopping by to get a pair of shoes he needed. Then he continued to wait. Several minutes later, he got a text back from Izzy. Which shoes? I'll bring them to the door. No need. I'm here now, be right in. He texted. Keys in hand, he strode to the front porch and unlocked the front door. He stepped inside just as Izzy made it to the foyer. He blinked back his surprise at her appearance. She looked tired, but more than that, she was pale. Very pale. Hey, he said, waiting for her to explain. Hey, I would have gotten the shoes, she said through clenched teeth. That's all right, I can get them. Just tell me which ones. Stay here and I'll get them. Seriously, I will get them. She continued to protest, but he made his way past her to go up the stairs. He glanced back to see that she had sat down on the bottom step. He continued on to their bedroom, and again he was taken aback. He knew that the house got a little messy sometimes, but this was like nothing he had seen before. The hallway had toys and kid shoes from one end to the other. He peeked into the hall bathroom and could see wet towels and dirty clothes covering the floor. Moving into the master bedroom, he saw the unmade bed and knew something was very wrong. Izzy always made the bed. Even if there were other messes, she made the bed without fail. He grabbed the shoes he needed from the closet and headed downstairs to find out what was going on. Izzy had moved from the steps to the couch in the living room. Izzy, he spoke quietly. He hated to disturb her when she looked like she might be asleep. Hey, she sat up quickly. Did you find what you needed? I did. Izzy, what's wrong? Are you all right? Yeah, I'm fine. She stood up, smoothing her hair out of her face, but it proved to be too much for her. She sank back down on the couch. No, you're not. You're sick. What's wrong? I just have a little bug. I will be all right. Just need to rest a little. How long have you been sick? A day or so maybe. Just coughing and sinus congestion, maybe a little fever. Sam reached out and placed his hand on Izzy's forehead. More than a little fever, you're burning up, Iz. You need to get some real rest. Will the boys be home after school? Izzy nodded. Charlie is napping now. Benja and Wilson are riding the bus home. They'll be here about 3:30. I'll be all right, don't worry. You need to be in bed, Sam said. No, I'm fine here. Izzy hung her head in her hands. Her eyes closed in exhaustion. Sam stood for a moment, wondering what he should do. He didn't feel right about leaving her there, and knew she would sleep better in bed than on the lumpy couch. He only paused for a second before deciding what to do. You need to be in bed, he said firmly, and in an instant he scooped her off of the couch and cradled her in his arms. He knew the warmth of her body was mostly the fever, but he noticed a spark in his own body as a response to her closeness. How long had it been since he had held her this close? How long had it been since she let him? He took the steps and stepped over the clothes in the floor to make it to the bed in the master bedroom. Gently he laid her down, then pulled the covers up to her chin. In her weakness, she was nearly asleep the whole time. His heart raced as he felt her forehead again, and his concern rose. He made his way back downstairs and searched the medicine cabinet for a fever reducer. He was sure Izzy would have known exactly where it was, but he had never been the caretaker, and it took him a few minutes. Once he had it, he hurried back up and held Izzy's head up to give her a dose of the medicine. He thought he heard her whisper a word of thanks, but he couldn't be sure. There was one thing he knew for sure. He wasn't going anywhere. Izzy awoke in her bed, even though she didn't remember coming upstairs. She rubbed her eyes and stretched out her arms, trying to remember what day it was and what time it might be. A tiny bit of sunlight crept in through the window blinds, but she couldn't decide if it was early morning or late evening. Fear struck her as she wondered what the boys might be doing. She pushed herself up to a sitting position and let her legs hang over the edge of the bed. Her head pounded and her throat felt raw. Rising, she had to stop to steady herself from the dizziness before heading downstairs. The boys' voices carried up the stairs, spurring her on to get to them. But she stopped at the bottom of the stairs when she heard another voice. Sam. She rounded the corner and found her family sitting at the dinner table, the boys and her husband each in their usual seats. Hi, she said. Her voice sounded deep and rough and her throat was aching. Hey, Sam rose and came to her. Did you get some sleep? Apparently. What time is it? She asked. 6 p.m., Sam told her. Oh, I guess I did sleep then. Feeling any better? Not much, she said before she could remind herself not to let him know, but I'll be all right. Sam put one hand on her forehead, and with the other he held her arm. Her skin warmed at his touch. You still have a fever, he said. Izzy looked into his eyes and saw a care and concern she hadn't seen in a long time. She almost let herself melt into him. How would it feel to fall into his arms and have him hold her, she wondered. Too late, she reminded herself. It's all right. Feel like eating anything? I made tacos. Sam's specialty. Izzy shook her head. Not right now, I just want something to drink. Sit down and I'll bring you some juice. We don't have any juice. Yes, we do. Wilson piped up. We went to the store and bought orange juice for you. Izzy looked at Sam, wide-eyed. You did? Sam shrugged like it was no big deal. Yeah, I saw we were out, and I know you like orange juice when your throat hurts. And the vitamin C is good for you. I got you some cold medicine too, and some throat tea and honey. Izzy couldn't remember the last time Sam had gone to the grocery store, not to mention taking the kids with him. And he had remembered what she liked when she was sick? It was too much to take in, especially with her head feeling fuzzy. She sank into a chair. Thanks, she said quietly. Sam brought her a glass on orange juice and she took it without a word. She was still trying to wrap her mind around Sam being so helpful. Sam interrupted her thoughts. So you know I can take my sick days if family is sick. I already called the office and took a sick day for tomorrow and can take the next day too if I need it. Oh, you didn't have to do that. Sam came close and sank down to meet her at eye level. Yes, Izzy, I did. His gaze was intense, and she couldn't look away even if she wanted to. You aren't well, even if you are trying to pretend you're okay. You need rest, and I'm here to help. Izzy wanted to say no. She had been doing this alone for a long time, and she would handle it. He could go back to a hotel or work. It was too late for him to try to help now. But her head throbbed and she couldn't think clearly enough to say the word. Instead, she heard herself whisper, "All right." She was startled when he leaned close and wrapped his arms around her. She let her head fall on his shoulder for just a moment. But she jerked her head back up when she started coughing. He let go and handed her the orange juice glass. He watched her take a drink and waited until she stopped coughing before beginning to clear the dishes from the table and take them to the sink. Izzy shook her head, trying to jar herself into clear thinking. Who is this guy? She thought. I'm not sure he is going to stick around. But I think I would like to find out. 12. Sam woke up on the couch in the living room. He sat up and turned his head from side to side, trying to work out the crick in his neck. Sleeping on the couch was uncomfortable at best, but he hadn't wanted to push the issue and ask Izzy if he could sleep in their room. When the boys found him on the couch, he used the excuse that Izzy was sick and he didn't need to catch her germs. That seemed to satisfy them. But it doesn't satisfy me, he thought, as he rose from the couch and headed to the kitchen. He brewed a pot of coffee and it was nearly ready when he heard a noise and turned to see Izzy coming down the stairs. Good morning, he said. He turned and pulled 2 mugs out of the cabinet and fixed coffee for them both. Hers with cream and his black. "Morning," Izzy said as she accepted her cup. He looked her over. "You look better this morning." "Thanks," she said, "I think. Except that also means I looked terrible before." Sam reached up and brushed her cheek with his thumb. "You are always beautiful. You only looked tired before." He heard Izzy's breath catch in her throat. He held her face in his hand for a moment before moving away. "You up for eggs and bacon for breakfast?" "Actually, I am," Izzy said. It was the first time she had wanted food besides a juice and crackers in the 2 days Sam had been with her. "Great. I also got cinnamon rolls to pop in the oven. I was waiting until you felt like eating to make them. I know they're your favorite." Izzy gave him that look again. The one she had been giving him since the first afternoon he was there. He knew she was waiting for him to leave or to give some ulterior motive for being so helpful. He could admit that there was a motive, but it was all to prove to her that he was the husband she needed. Izzy finally cleared her throat and spoke. "Are you going to work today?" "No, I told them I needed one more day. I want to make sure you're fully recovered. Besides, it's Friday, so I figured I would just roll it into the weekend." Izzy sipped her coffee. "MMHMM. I'll take the boys to school, and my mom asked if she could take Charlie for a little while today. I thought you and I could hang out here, and maybe watch a movie, and maybe we can tackle the laundry." "You're going to do laundry?" Izzy asked. Sam laughed. "Don't sound so surprised. I know how to use a washing machine." "Do you? Everyone knows that the Pierce boys let your mom do your laundry until you got married." "I can neither confirm nor deny that statement," Sam said formally. Izzy laughed, which encouraged Sam. "Furthermore, I resent that accusation. I seem to remember at least one time that I have done laundry since we've been married." Izzy laughed again. "Oh yes, I think there was one and only one time you did laundry." Sam shrugged. "You asked me not to do it anymore, said you preferred to do it yourself. Because all of my white clothes were pink after you washed that brand new red shirt with my whites." Izzy was laughing heartily now. "How was I supposed to know? None of my clothes turned blue from the other shirt I washed. No one told me red was the magical, turn everything a different color kind of dye. Why is that anyway?" "I don't know. I guess there's just a lot of dye in the red clothes," Izzy said as her laugh subsided. "I didn't think it was funny then, but remembering it now, the look on your face was priceless when you showed me the laundry basket." Sam smiled. It had been a while since he had heard her laugh like that. Without thinking, he leaned down and kissed her on the side of her forehead. "Yep, those were the days." Izzy cleared her throat and stood from where she sat at the kitchen counter. "Yes, well, it was a long time ago. Do you want me to make breakfast?" "Nope, I got it. Why don't you go tell the boys to get up and send them down here and you can get a shower before we eat?" Izzy eyed him again. Another compliment. "Are you saying I smell?" He grinned at her. "No, I'm saying you haven't had a shower, and I'm giving you the opportunity to take one in peace." She held up her hand. "Say no more." She was gone up the stairs without another word. Sam watched her go. He had felt a glimmer of hope when he heard her laugh, but she shut him down again quickly when he had gotten close. He knew she didn't trust him to stay close. He would have to change her mind about that. With the kids gone and a load of laundry running in the washing machine, Izzy had settled down on the couch. She had showered and put on clean pajamas to lounge around for the day. "What do you want to watch?" she asked Sam. Sam took a seat next to her and handed her a glass of orange juice. "You pick." She gave him a look. "All right, what gives?" "What do you mean? Why are you being so nice?" Sam squinted his eyes. "Are you saying I'm not usually nice?" "Well, not this nice. You're helping out, bringing me food, letting me pick the movie." "When was the last time I picked the movie?" "I don't know. But I'm trying to take care of you, because you're sick. And you get to pick the movie. So it's temporary, right?" Come on, let's not argue right now. He handed her the remote. Just pick a movie. Unlike Sam, she wanted to argue, but she didn't. She chose a romantic comedy that Sam wouldn't usually have wanted to watch, and pulled the blanket up around her arms. Sam settled in beside her, and she didn't pull away when his arm pressed against hers. The touch distracted her from the storyline, and her thoughts traveled back in time to high school when they first watched a movie together. "You're sure your parents don't mind?" Izzy asked teenage Sam. "Yep, they said it's fine. They're watching a movie in their room. Mom said they would be in and out." "So what do you want to watch?" "Something mushy?" Izzy wiggled her eyebrows. "Nah, none of those girly movies. Let's watch something with action." Izzy shrugged. "Whatever you want." She didn't really mind. Whatever the movie was, she could sit close to him with his arm around her. "Die Hard?" "Sure." She took a seat on the couch and made herself comfortable. Sam put the movie on and came to sit next to her. Right next to her. She could smell his cologne. When he lifted his arm, she scooted over even more and laid her head on his shoulder. Yep, she didn't care much about the movie. This is what she wanted. You're so comfortable right there," Sam's voice deepened. "Oh yeah," Izzy nuzzled her face into his shoulder. "Yep, you're just right. Like you're supposed to fit right here under my arm." "MMHMM," Izzy's heart beat fast as his words. "And you know what?" "What?" Her eyes met his as she smiled. His eyes were intense and serious, something different for wild Sam Pierce. "We're going to be together forever." She blushed at this declaration, but even then she felt the same way. Now on the couch in their own living room, she wondered if it was really true. Would they be together forever? Or had they just been together for so long so that they didn't know how to go on anymore? Who am I? The familiar question poked at Izzy's conscience. They had been so young when they met, and still figuring out who they were. And somewhere along the way she had stopped figuring out Izzy, and only figured out Sam and Izzy. Was it right to only be who you were, in connection to someone else? No, an invisible voice whispered to her. It made her skin prickly and left a dark impression on her heart. She shivered, but she couldn't shake that thought. "I have to figure out who I am on my own," she told herself. "And I don't know if I can do that here." Sam cleared his throat, interrupting her thoughts. "Want a snack? I could make us some popcorn." Izzy stared at him, really taking him in. Who was this man that she had been married to for so long? Not the teenage boy that she had met long ago, but the man in front of her. As much as she wasn't sure if she knew herself individually, she wasn't sure she knew him either. Who had they become in this marriage? Work, kids, life, it was all so much, and there hadn't been much time left for them. "Izzy." Sam sat up and looked her in the face. "Are you all right?" She shook her head, trying to clear her thoughts. Yeah, sorry, I was just thinking. About if you want popcorn." He grinned. "I didn't know it was a major life decision." He reached out and pushed a piece of hair behind her ear. She expected him to drop his hand and get up, but he didn't. Instead, he ran his hand down her neck and shoulder. The sensation sent a shiver down her spine. His eyes never moved from hers, intense as always. Before she could move, he leaned in. Their lips met in a surprising and tender kiss. It lasted only a moment before he pulled back to look her in the eyes. When he did, she saw a hunger in his eyes and something else, a pleading, a question maybe. Izzy's thoughts were too jumbled to know how to answer him, so she raised her eyebrows back in her own question. He must have taken that as a yes, because he pressed his lips against hers again. Both his hands went to either side of her face and then down to her neck. Izzy felt like she couldn't move. He kissed her again and again, and she let him. Her own hands grasping his biceps. Simultaneously wanting to push him away and clinging to him, hoping he would never let go. The kiss lasted for a few minutes, but then that voice inside Izzy started yelling, "No. No." She began to ease herself back away from her husband and pressed her hands against his chest. "Sam, I don't think it's a good idea." His grin nearly made her change her mind. "What?" Are you afraid I will catch your cold? She smiled, but her resolve was getting firmer now. No, I just don't think it's a good idea. Well, I think it's a great idea, he said gruffly and leaned in to kiss her again. No, she said firmly. There's too much going on right now to confuse it with that. Like you said, let's not argue right now, just watch the movie. She leaned away from him and pulled the blanket all the way up to her chin. Sam breathed out a big sigh, then stood and only said, I'll get the popcorn. 13. The 3 days at home had gone by fast, although in some ways Sam felt like he had been moving in slow motion. He had wanted to be helpful and take care of Izzy, but he was also tiptoeing around her emotions and feelings about him. As he sat at the kitchen counter with his morning coffee, he let out a big sigh. He knew he hadn't been the husband he should have been. He was only beginning to see that. He had thought working hard to provide for them was the only thing he needed to do. But he saw now that he could and should do more. I can do better now, he thought. The days at home had had some rocky spots, but he genuinely felt that they were making progress. At least he hoped that was true. Morning. Izzy walked into the kitchen, dressed and ready for the day. Morning, I'm glad to see you're feeling better. Yes, I am, she said stiffly. I made some coffee for you. Izzy let out a big sigh and looked him in the eye. Sam, we have to talk about this. What? Sam asked. This. She waved her hand between the two of them. And what about it? I appreciate what you've done the last few days. I needed the help, and I can admit that. But we can't just pretend that things are fine between us. 3 days doesn't make up for all the weeks and months that I've been alone and without help. Even when you're here, I feel like I do it all. I just can't do that anymore. Don't you see that I'm trying? That I'm making a big effort to be better? I know you've tried, and like I said, I appreciate that. But how long will that last? And Sam, are you even sure that is what you want? What are you saying? Panic was rising in his chest. Sam, we've been together so long, but the last few years we have grown apart. I don't remember my life much before you, but now I don't even know who I am. And I don't know who you are anymore. I'm not even sure you do. Izzy, you're talking crazy. I'm the same person I've always been. All I have done is try to provide for you and the kids. All I do is work for that. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. We don't even have fun anymore. You're not the fun, light-hearted, funny guy they first knew in high school. We don't laugh anymore. Sure we do, Sam tried. Sam, are you happy? Well, he began. No, really? Are you truly happy with the way life is going? Sam sighed. No. I think we both need to take some time and figure out who we are and what we want. Izzy, that's not how marriage works. We said for better or for worse, remember? I know. And I never thought we would walk away from that. But I'm not happy, and neither are you. And it's been this way for a while. I just don't see things changing from a couple of days of sickness and watching movies together. Izzy, please don't. She held up a hand to him. Listen, I need some time. Time apart and time to figure out what I want. We both do. I know what I want. I want to be with you. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she didn't bother brushing them away. I'm just not sure I believe that anymore. He stood and intended to put his arms around her, but she backed away from him. Don't, she said firmly. Please, Sam. I want to do what's best for both of us and for the kids. I just think it's time to think about going our separate ways. You don't mean that. I do. I'm tired of this. And right now, I just want out. 2 hours later, Sam sat in the car in the driveway. His bags were packed, and Izzy had told the boys he had to go out of town for work. It was a lie, but he didn't argue this time. He didn't want them to know the truth. His mind was reeling at Izzy's words, I just want out. He didn't want it to be the truth. He had tried to talk Izzy out of the separation, but she seemed even more certain this time. Ultimately, he had agreed to give her 2 weeks apart. He wouldn't call or text. What about the boys? He had asked. So they had come up with fake days that he was out of town, and she agreed that he could come and stay with the boys for the weekend while she went to visit her mom. Everything was planned. But Sam didn't like it one bit. Izzy had suggested Sam check into a hotel again, but he knew their bank account couldn't handle that. She didn't want him to tell anyone yet, but since Jack already knew, he called and asked if he could stay for a few days. Jack was hesitant, since he felt like Sam needed to stay to work things out. But Sam assured him it was only for 2 weeks, and that he was doing the best he could do. Izzy stared aimlessly at the sink of dishes in front of her. She could vaguely hear the boys playing in their rooms upstairs, but the noise didn't register. Her mind wandered with the thoughts of what she had done. Did I really say I wanted out? She could barely fathom that it was true. But she knew she had said it, and she knew she had meant it. That dark voice inside kept encouraging her. This is what you want, this is the right thing, no turning back. A loud noise that must have been the boys wrestling startled her. She shook her head and yelled up to them. Boys, not too rough, a sentence she knew was futile but felt it was her job to say. Izzy took pains to start loading the dishes in the dishwasher and turned her mind to the rest of the day. Suddenly Saturday seemed like a very long day. Of all days, this was the one that Sam was usually home for. Many times he was exhausted from his week and sat on the couch watching sports for a good portion of the day. Not today, Izzy thought. With the boys playing upstairs, she decided to leave the housekeeping for later and read a book. But what book? She didn't know how long it had been since she had read a book for pleasure, and she didn't know where to begin. I'll add that to my list, she thought, the list of all the things she needed to figure out about herself. What did she like to do with free time? What kinds of movies and books would she pick on her own? She was ready to find out. 14. Sam couldn't believe where he was and what he was walking into. It was Sunday afternoon, and he hadn't attended church. He didn't know if Izzy was going to go, but he didn't want to cause any problems, just in case she did. But now he was headed to meet with the pastor. His palms were sweaty, and he felt like his heart was in his throat. He didn't know how he was going to bring himself to admit to the pastor what was going on. As he walked into the church office, he knew it was too late to back out now. Hey Sam, Pastor Owen greeted him. Sam and Izzy hadn't been going to the church for long, but Jim and Gladys had attended for a few years. Sam and Izzy had become less and less involved at their own church, and eventually decided to go to church with his parents and let the kids see their grandparents on Sundays. Hi, Pastor. Sam tried to smile as he reached out to shake his hand. Please, just Owen is fine with me. Sure, Sam stuffed his hands into his jean pockets. Let's go on in my office to talk. Sam followed him and took a seat on the couch. I'm glad you could come in today. I know that work keeps you busy and out of town a lot. Yeah, it does, Sam admitted. So what's on your mind? Sam took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. He knew he had to talk about it if he wanted any chance of saving his marriage. Things at home have been, well, not good. Pastor Owen waited, seeming patient for several moments. Go on, not good in what way? Sam ran his fingers through his hair. My marriage. Like you said, work has kept me out of town a lot, and Izzy says I'm never there, and when I am, I'm not involved or helpful. He paused before he could manage to say the worst of it. She said she wants out. She's asked me to move out for a couple of weeks while we figure things out, but it seems like she's done. Owen seemed to carefully weigh his words before speaking. I'm sorry it has come to that. Often I see that couples don't know how to communicate their needs until they feel like they have had all they can take. Then the offended partner throws out that they are finished, while the supposed offender is taken completely off guard. Is that about right? Yes, exactly. I thought things were going all right. Sure, I work a lot, but that's how I support the family. And then one day I go home and she tells me to get out. Sam threw his hands up in the air. She didn't even give me a chance to fix it. I know that's frustrating. Do you think she would be willing to come in with you and meet with me for counseling? Usually, it helps for couples to have a mediator to help them communicate what is really going on and how they're feeling. Sam shook his head. I don't know. She might, but not right now at least. She's asked me to leave her alone for 2 weeks. And you've agreed to that? Yeah, I didn't see any other option. Owen nodded slowly. Then if you've agreed to that, you need to be a man of your word. But as soon as that time is up, you need to start communicating with her. Do you feel like you want out, or do you want to fight to save your marriage? I want my marriage, Sam said firmly. Good. Then my first piece of advice is to take the next 2 weeks and pray. Pray as often as you can for your wife, for your marriage, for your kids. And you need to make a plan for what you will do when the 2 weeks is up. I have some suggestions, but I think you need to ask the Lord what He would have you do and act on that. That's it. Sam scratched at his scruffy face. Owen smiled kindly. For now, yes, that's it. I'm glad to see that your desire is to reconcile. That makes all the difference in the world. And if you're willing to take some of the blame and fight for her, then I think if you follow the Lord's guidance, He will take you where you need to be. Monday afternoon, Izzy sat in her bedroom floor amidst a sea of boxes and papers. With the older boys at school and Charlie taking a nap, she had decided to finally tackle cleaning out their storage closet. She had realized early in that this was much more than an afternoon project, but without Sam at home, she knew she would just let it take over the bedroom for a few days. As expected, she had found some lost toys and tubs of clothing that were too small for the boys now. Izzy sneezed as dust from one of the boxes flew in the air. She picked up the box and carried it into the bedroom to sort. When she saw the permanent marker lettering on the side, she almost put it back unopened. Sam and Izzy, it read, in her college handwriting. She knew, without opening it, that it was filled with memories of their early years of marriage, and at the moment, she couldn't even remember what that was like. Curiosity got the better of her, and she opened the lid. On top was their wedding album. She glanced at the first picture inside and saw their smiling faces. Beaming, actually. She ran her fingers over the glossy print. We were so happy, she thought. And they had been. At 19, they defined young and in love. So many people had told them they should wait, finish college before getting married, but their parents were supportive, and Sam and Izzy knew what they wanted. They would make it work. And they had. Izzy closed the photo album and moved to the next item. Their senior year high school yearbook brought a flood of memories to mind. She opened it and saw pictures of Sam with the basketball team and herself in a number of club photos. She remembered picking up her yearbook that year. She and Sam held hands as they walked to the table together and gave their names to pick up their books. Sam Pierce and Isabel Collins, Sam said for both of them. As they waited, Sam turned to her. Are you gonna let me be the first person to sign your yearbook? Of course, Izzy smiled at him. You better write something good. I already know what it will say, Sam winked. With their books in hand, they walked outside the school and sat on the front steps. Here, hand me a pen. He took the pen and turned around to hide what he was writing. He took only a moment, and then turned and handed the book back to her. That was quick, Izzy said. I told you I knew what I wanted to write. Izzy started to open her book. Don't read it now. Sam reached out and pushed the book closed. Save it for later. Later that evening, Izzy dropped her backpack on her bed. She had nearly forgotten about the yearbook, as she and Sam spent the rest of the afternoon together. But she pulled out the book and quickly tried to find Sam's note. A number of other friends had signed her book, so his wasn't the only name anymore. It took a few minutes, but she knew his handwriting the second she saw it. His words brought a smile, and her heart did a little flip-flop as she read, Izzy, one day when I say our names together, it will be with the same last name. I love you forever, Sam. Now Izzy put the old yearbook aside as she moved through the box. The words felt empty to her when she read what he had written all those years ago. But what she found next brought a tear to her eye. It might look like just an old piece of wrapping paper and a Christmas bow, but it had been the most important gift she had ever received. Izzy's first semester of college had flown by. She had done well in her freshman classes. She attended class, studied, and spent the rest of her time with Sam. But she was glad to be on Christmas break. It was a little strange, though, being back in her parents' house and telling them where she was going all the time. However, this time all she could tell them was that she was spending the day with Sam. He had planned an outing for them, but had said it was a surprise, and she didn't know where they were headed. "Bye, Mom," she called out as she headed out the front door. Sam met her on the porch. "You bundled up?" His eyes twinkled when he saw her. "Yep, I've got my coat and gloves and a scarf in my purse." "Good, let's go." He took her hand as they walked to the car. "Are you going to tell me where we're going?" Izzy asked. "Nope, I told you it's a surprise." He winked. 45 minutes later, Izzy didn't have to wonder anymore. They pulled into a beautiful Christmas tree farm. They spent the next hour walking through the Christmas trees, sipping hot chocolate, and taking a ride in one of the horse-drawn wagons around the farm. Together they picked out a small Christmas tree that Izzy could put in her room. They loaded it in the back of Sam's car, then Sam shut the door, leaned against the car, and held his arms out to Izzy. She leaned into his embrace and laid her head on his chest. "Isn't it beautiful?" she said of the view. Christmas trees stood in rows for acres, and beyond them the mountain backdrop led up to the cool December sky. "It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," Sam said. Izzy grinned when she met his eyes and knew he was looking at her and not the farm. "I meant the view." "I like my view." He kissed the tip of her nose. Izzy snuggled back up to him and breathed in the moment. "I hope I remember this forever," she thought. "Are you cold? Ready to head home?" she asked, hoping that he wasn't. "We can go, but I'm not taking you back yet. Let's get some lunch." "Sounds good." Izzy squeezed him one more time before walking to her side of the car. They drove to a quaint cafe not far away from the farm. Izzy thought the little town was cute, with small shops and people walking the sidewalks perusing them. The cafe had sandwiches, which they both ate with hot apple cider. They talked and held hands in between bites, discussing how their finals had gone and the classes they were looking forward to in the spring semester. After lunch, Sam suggested they walk for a bit, despite how cold it was. Sam and Izzy walked down the sidewalk outside, pausing to look in the windows of shops as they passed. In between a couple of shops was a staircase leading up to a deck on top of the buildings. Sam suggested they take the stair and see what they could see. They climbed the steps together. On the deck was a number of tables and chairs. The restaurant below used it for seating in the warmer months, but right now it was empty of people. At the edge there was a railing, and Sam and Izzy stopped here to admire the view. Behind the shops was farmland as far as you could see, with the mountains in the distance. Trees stood looking bare without any leaves, and there were no crops to be seen across the field. But Izzy still thought it was beautiful. She leaned against the railing as her warm breath fogged in the cool air. "What are you thinking?" Sam asked. "Nothing really," she said, just taking in the moment. Act 2 Ally, I was thinking this looks like a picture. I wonder if I could paint it. Sure you could, you're a wonderful painter. Thanks. She smiled. I don't know if I'm wonderful, but I'm all right. She glanced over at Sam and noticed how serious he looked. Are you okay? She asked. Me? I'm great, fantastic actually. Really? Of course I'm with you. She smiled at him and he came close and took her hands in his. Izzy, being with you is my favorite thing. Whether we are going somewhere special or watching a movie or studying together, as long as I'm with you, it's my favorite thing. Mine too, Izzy said. I've told you 100 times that I love you and that I'm going to love you forever. Izzy's heart beat faster as he continued. Since the first time we talked, I have known I wanted to be with you and that what we have wasn't a short-term thing. Izzy, no matter where I go in life and no matter what I do, there is one thing I have always been sure of, and that's that I want to be with you wherever I go. He paused as he reached in his pocket and pulled out a small package wrapped in Christmas paper and topped with a red bow. He handed it to Izzy and waited as she opened it, wide-eyed. When she had removed the wrapping paper and found a black velvet box, he took it in his hands. I want our forever to start as soon as possible, he said. Then he opened the box, revealing a diamond ring. Isabel Collins, will you marry me? Izzy had always heard that girls cried when they were proposed to, but she couldn't imagine crying just then. Instead, she bubbled over with laughter. Laughter and joy. Yes, she shouted out so loudly she could hear the echo. That made her laugh again, so she shouted, yes. Again. Sam joined her. Yes, he shouted, and they laughed as they heard his echo too. He opened the ring box and put a solitaire diamond ring on her finger. Then he took her face in both his hands and kissed her. Their faces were both red from the cold and excitement of the moment, but when he pulled away, they were breathless. How long have you planned this? Izzy asked. A month, Sam admitted. A month. Izzy swatted his shoulder with her hand. You kept it from me this long? It's supposed to be a surprise, so yeah, you're not supposed to know about it, Sam laughed. Well, I'm surprised for sure. I'm glad. I didn't know if I could pull it off. You did. Izzy kissed him again. I will remember this day for the rest of my life. Sitting in her bedroom now, Izzy knew that statement was true. She still remembered every detail of that day, from the smell of the hot apple cider to the cold on her cheeks as they stood atop the deck. A single tear slipped down her cheek as she thought of where they were now. Young love had been fun and happy and sincere, but maybe it wasn't enough to carry them over all these years. Maybe young love was all we had, she thought. Even though we said forever, maybe we were too young to know how long forever would last. 15. Sam was keeping up his part of the agreement by leaving Izzy alone for the week, but it was nearly killing him. His kids thought he was out of town for work, and he knew that one day he would have to tell them that hadn't been true. His parents didn't know anything that was going on, and now he had drug his brothers into his dishonesty. He didn't like the tangled web that was being built. He wanted to go home and work things out. And he wanted to do it now. But he knew he would follow through for 2 weeks. He also knew that when the 2 weeks were up, he wouldn't do any more lying. If Izzy wanted out, they would tell everyone the truth and accept the results. But he didn't want out, and he planned to do everything in his power to convince Izzy of that. It had only been 3 days, and he sat in the guest bedroom at Jack's house, feet propped up on the bed and notebook in hand. He had never been much of a writer or one for writing in journals, but Pastor Owen had suggested praying and writing it down so he could look back and see how God had answered his prayers. So he wrote, God, I know I've messed things up. I didn't choose to leave, but I let it get to a point where Izzy wanted me gone. I worked hard at work, but I didn't work hard at home. Forgive me for that. Show me how to be better, and God, please give me a second chance. Sam leaned his head back against the headboard and let out a sigh. He hadn't done much but think about Izzy and the boys the last few days, and that made him realize how he hadn't thought of them as much before. Izzy had been right. He had wanted to argue with her before, but now he knew she had been right about how he acted, and he had to tell her that. But he couldn't yet. Not for a week and a half now. He turned the page in his journal and started on a fresh, clean page. He worked on a plan, one to get back on track with the love of his life. Izzy was only going through the motions of her day. The heaviness that she was really about to be a single mom had pulled her down into a funk. She did the dishes, folded the laundry, and put some dinner in the crockpot for the boys to have later, but she didn't feel like eating. She had only left the house that week to take the boys to school. She didn't want to see anyone and tell them what was going on. Not even her playgroup friends, who would probably cheer her on. But right now she didn't want to cheer on what she had done. But it was Friday, and Sam was coming home to stay with the boys for the weekend. Izzy forced herself to shower and dress. She didn't want Sam to see her and think she was upset. This was her decision, and she wasn't changing her mind. When Sam arrived, the boys were watching a show in the living room, and Izzy was just bringing her suitcase down the stairs. Dad, the boys excitedly called out, and ran to him for hugs and began telling him all about their adventures of the week. Sam hugged them and listened, but Izzy saw him glance at her once or twice. She pretended to ignore it. She walked to the kitchen and made a few more notes on the instructions she was leaving for Sam. She took a deep breath and tried to push away the emotion before she walked out. Back in the living room, she called out, "All right, boys, come say goodbye." She hugged each one and reminded them to behave. They had already asked a million times why they couldn't all go to their grandparents' house, but she had told them she and Mimi, her mom, were going to work on a grown-up project and they would have more fun at home with Dad. She turned and pulled the handle of the suitcase without looking in Sam's direction. "Here, let me take that out for you." Sam put his hand on the handle, and his touch on hers felt like a burn to her skin. "No, I've got it," she said and pulled away from him. "I left you some notes in the kitchen. Call me if it's an emergency." She met his gaze with a cold, hard stare. The tenderness in his eyes almost made her go to him, but she stiffened and only said, "I'll be back Sunday night," before turning and walking out the door. The drive to her parents' house was almost pleasant. The 2 hours passed quickly as she listened to whatever music she wanted to and didn't have to stop any arguments in the back seat. She even stopped to get herself dinner and only considered her personal preference. Even though she still didn't feel like eating much and most of her food was left untouched. She arrived without any fanfare, parking in the driveway and letting herself in the house. "Mom, Dad, it's me," she called out. No response. She walked through the foyer and into the formal living room. Her mom and dad sat on the plush leather chairs, with every pillow in exactly the right spot. "Isabel," her mother said as she rose to give her a stiff hug. Her parents never called her Izzy. "Margaret and Peter Collins believed that the name you were given should be good enough for you." "Hi, Mom, how are you?" "Fine," she said. "Have you eaten?" "Yes, I stopped on my way." "I'm sorry, I should have let you know." Her mother sighed. "That's all right." "Hey, Dad." Izzy went to her father and leaned over to kiss him on the head. "Hey," he said, only barely taking his eyes from the television. "Watching something good?" Izzy asked. "One of my favorites," he said of the old black and white movie he was watching. "Do you need help with your things?" Margaret asked. "No, that's all right. I've just got a small suitcase, I left it in the foyer." Margaret gave Izzy a look. "Just for a second, so I'll go put it upstairs now." "All right." Margaret kept a neat house. She would never allow a suitcase to sit in the foyer for an extended period of time, even to greet someone. Izzy took the suitcase up to the guest room, not her own room, since this was a house she had never lived in with her parents. She pushed the perfectly situated throw pillows out of the way to put her suitcase on the bed. Izzy couldn't help thinking this was going to be a very long weekend. Back downstairs, her parents hadn't moved from their spots while she was gone. They sat on either end of the couch, his dad watching the movie and her mother worked on an embroidery project. Izzy took a seat on the wingback chair opposite them. "So what's new with you guys?" she asked. Margaret looked up, her glasses sitting on the end of her nose. "New?" She raised her eyebrows. "Nothing is new." Izzy wanted to roll her eyes, but knew better. "What have you been up to then?" Her mother set her project down in her lap, seeming a little put out. "I have my charity work, and your father goes to work. Of course, he is nearing his retirement, but he likes what he does." Izzy didn't ask any more questions. Her parents were nice enough, but they weren't warm, happy people. Izzy had often wondered where she got her spunky personality when her parents were so calm, and she had even called them vanilla. This was their Friday night, and she knew better than to try to change that. "I think I'll go for a walk, if you don't mind. It will be nice to stretch my legs after the drive." "All right," Margaret said and went back to her embroidery. Outside, Izzy took a deep breath and took in the crisp fall air. She felt a little lighter out of the house, just as she had as a teenager. She walked briskly through the neighborhood, passing the large brick houses nicely spaced out on the street. She slowed when she reached her real destination, the lake in the middle of the neighborhood. It was a small lake, but there was a walking path all the way around and appeared to walk out towards the center of the water. Water had always been her favorite place. The beach, the lake, a small river, any kind of water made her feel calm and joyful. She stood at the edge of the water, taking several deep breaths and waiting for that feeling to come. She waited and waited. Even though it was quiet and peaceful on the water, inside she felt like a storm churning. Her mind hadn't stopped going round and round for days. How was she going to do this? Would she be able to make it on her own? How would the boys feel? That was the one question she couldn't bring herself to dwell on. She thought of her own parents and how she was so different from them. She had wanted to escape the house as often as possible when she was a teenager. Maybe that's why she had wanted to marry Sam so soon. Was he her escape? And now here she was running from her husband and back to her parents' house. "What am I doing?" she asked out loud. But the water held no answer for her. She knew she should pray, but she didn't want to. She sighed as she turned back to the house. The water gave her no sense of joy today. The next morning, Izzy sat at the table eating breakfast with her mother. Her father had already eaten and was busying himself with a book. Margaret had been making small talk, telling Izzy about her charity work and new recipes she had been making. Finally, she stopped and asked the question Izzy had been dreading. "Dear, I'm enjoying you being here, and I'm sure you need a break from your wild house. But why are you really here?" Izzy took a deep breath. She knew she couldn't hide this from her mom. "Sam and I were having some trouble." "What kind of trouble? Money?" "No, Mom, not money. Marriage trouble." "Oh," in one word her mother sounded both disappointed and relieved. "We're taking some time apart." "Was this his decision or yours?" Izzy hesitated. "Mine." "Why?" Her mother was wide-eyed. "I just don't want to do it anymore, Mom. He works all the time and travels more often than not. I take care of everything at home and he's never there, and doesn't help when he is. I feel like it would just be easier to know I'm doing it all on my own and not expect help from him. And things just aren't the same. We never really connect anymore. We don't talk or laugh or do things together. It's just me and the kids all the time. So maybe it should just be me and the kids." "He won't ever be out of your life, Isabel. He's the father of your children. So even if you separate or divorce, he's always going to be there." "I know that. What are you planning to do about money?" "If this becomes permanent, I'll have to go back to work. There are some great preschools in our area, and I've been thinking about getting my real estate license. One of my friends does it, and she thinks I would be pretty good. I could show houses while the kids are in school and be home before they get out of school." "It sounds like you've thought it through then." "I guess I have," Izzy said, more to herself than her mother. "I can't say that I'm shocked, of course. Everyone said the two of you were too young to get married." Izzy rolled her eyes and bit her tongue. "But you've lasted a while longer than most people said you would. So I suppose that's something. If you decide to go through with this, your father and I will support you in your decision." Izzy felt sick to her stomach to think about actually getting a divorce, but also that her mother was being supportive and agreeing with her for once. That made it seem like a bad idea. "Your father and I have some money set aside for you in case of an emergency. If you need help financially during the transition, we can help." Izzy didn't know whether to be grateful or offended. Her mom was so calm, as if she had always expected this day would come. She managed to get out, "Thanks, Mom." Margaret rose from the table. "Of course, Isabel, that's what family is for." She started cleaning up the breakfast dishes as if they had been having a normal, everyday conversation. But Izzy felt like the whole thing was anything but normal. 16. Izzy breathed a sigh of relief as she pulled into her own driveway. She had thought she would enjoy the time away and the visit with her parents, but it had been taxing. Her mom had spent the rest of the visit as if Izzy and Sam were already getting a divorce. Margaret made suggestions about what to do with the house and how to handle sharing time with the boys. Izzy was mentally exhausted from all the talk. Now she was just ready to see her kids. She left her suitcase in the car and hurried inside. "Boys?" Izzy called out from the foyer. She braced herself to see the house a disaster, and wondered if the boys had taken baths while she was gone. All three boys come running to her from the living room. Izzy hugged them as they excitedly chattered about their weekend. She could only pick up snippets since they talked at once, but she heard movie and skate park in the mix. Sounds like you had a good time. She smiled at them. I missed you. We missed you too, Mom, Benja said. I did all my homework for you. Really? Izzy said wide-eyed. That's great, buddy. Dad said I needed to get it done so we could have fun the rest of the time. Izzy raised her eyebrows. That's right. I'm proud of you for doing that. The boys ran back to the living room where they were eating pizza in the floor and watching a movie. Izzy walked slowly into the kitchen where she found Sam. Hi, he said. But Izzy barely heard him. She was staring at the kitchen, which was even cleaner than she had left it. No dishes in the sink, nothing piled on the counter. The floor even looked like it had been swept. Hey, Izzy finally said as her eyes landed back on Sam. She wanted to make a joke and ask if he had hired a maid, but she stopped herself from that. How was your weekend? Sam spoke quietly. Izzy was within 2 feet of him now, and her exhaustion hit her like a ton of bricks. Exhausting, she said, and without thinking she leaned in to hug him. When his arms came around her waist, she let herself melt into him. Had he always smelled this good? She took several deep breaths, feeling like he took the weight of the weekend off of her. All too soon she came to her senses and leaned back. She put her hands on his biceps to push back, but his arms were still firmly locked around her back. Her eyes met his for just a moment. His gaze was gentle but sure. Izzy met his gaze but shook her head, and he released his grip on her. Sounds like you guys had a busy weekend. Sam nodded. We had a good time. I'm glad. We saved you some pizza if you want it. Oh, thanks. Izzy felt like she had walked into someone else's house and saw someone else's husband. She would admit that it was nice, but she knew it was his attempt at smoothing things over, and she wasn't giving in that easily. I'm good anytime if you need to go. Sam's face fell. I thought I would stay until the boys go to bed, so I don't have to tell them why I'm leaving. Izzy considered this. All right, she sighed. We're going to have to tell them, eventually. No, Sam said quickly, not yet. Izzy nodded, not trusting herself to speak around the lump forming in her throat. She dreaded telling them too. 17. Izzy took a deep breath and let it out. She had to make it through this Pierce family weekend at the cabin pretending she and Sam were fine. After that, it would be time to tell everyone and start moving on with her life. It was still hard to believe that she was ready for a divorce. But she felt more sure every day that she wanted to move forward, figuring out what she wanted for her life. She and Sam had barely spoken on the drive. Gladys and Jim had begged them to let the boys ride with them, so it had been a quiet ride. Now they had arrived at the family cabin. As Izzy stepped out of the car, she looked around. Are we the first ones here? Sam cleared his throat. I guess so, he said. Didn't your mom say they were leaving right after us? Yeah, she did. Izzy felt her nerves rising. The only thing she was more nervous about than spending all weekend with the family was being alone with Sam. She walked to the back of the car to get her bag, but Sam already had it over his shoulder. She huffed, but knew there was no use trying to take it away from him. I could carry my own things, she said. I'm capable. I know. You're very capable. But I wanted to do it for you. Izzy rolled her eyes and turned towards the cabin. She put the code in the key box and then unlocked the front door. She expected the air to be musty and stale from being shut up for a period of time. Instead, she smelled something sweet and floral. She walked through the entryway to the kitchen and found a bouquet of soft white roses on the kitchen counter. There were candles on the kitchen table that looked as if they had been lit and blown out. Someone had been here quite recently. Izzy furrowed her brow. She moved into the living room and found candles on the mantel and fresh wood in the fireplace. The couch had fall-colored pillows and blankets draped over the back. I guess your mom came up and got the house ready earlier, Izzy called out to Sam, who was walking in the door loaded down with their bags. He didn't say anything, but walked towards the master bedroom. Where are you going? She asked. That stuff needs to go in the room upstairs. Sam came back out and stood to face her. No, it needs to go in there. Izzy gave him a strange look. She opened her mouth to speak, but just then she heard a car door shut. Good, that must be your parents. She went to the door to see, but it wasn't Jim and Gladys. Jack was in the yard, but he didn't stop to greet them. He walked confidently to the driver's side of Sam's car and got in. What's going on? Izzy yelled. Then she noticed Russell in the other car pulling back out of the driveway. What's going on? She yelled again, her voice getting louder. Jack cranked Sam's car and pulled out behind Russell, and the two vehicles disappeared down the road. What? Izzy ran into the yard, waving her arms. She turned to find Sam standing in the doorway. Her eyes were fiery as she yelled at him. Are you going to tell me what's going on? Sam spoke gently. Come inside and I'll explain. No, explain right now. Inside, Sam said and walked away. Izzy stood for several minutes, not wanting to give in, but also wanting answers. Finally, she walked inside and found Sam sitting on the couch in the living room, looking completely calm. He patted the seat next to him and waited. Izzy took a seat in the chair opposite him, sitting on the edge as if she might bolt any minute. I'm sorry, Izzy. I didn't tell you the truth about this weekend. I hated to do it, but I felt it was the only way to get you here. No one else is coming. It's just you and me. Izzy felt panicked. What about our kids? Her voice echoed off the high ceiling. My parents are keeping them. But I told them we were all going to be at the cabin together. I know, but my mom has some fun things planned for them. She explained it to them. And Benja and Wilson already knew it was a surprise for you. She felt betrayed and tricked, and she didn't like either of those things. I want to go home. I didn't agree to this. I know, but we need it, Iz. No, I don't need it. What I need is a divorce. Sam sat silent. Is that really what you want? Yes, it is. I don't want to be with someone who lies to me, and I don't want your fake helpfulness. And I don't want to be in a loveless marriage. There, she had said it. Sam's eyes were sad. Izzy thought she even noticed tears. I'm sorry you feel that way. Our marriage isn't loveless because I still love you. If you want a divorce after this weekend, I will give it to you. But please spend this weekend with me. Let's remember what it was like when it was just the two of us. And you don't have to cook or clean or take care of anybody while we're here. He cleared his throat. My mom didn't come and get the cabin ready. I did. I drove up yesterday and set everything up. The fridge is full of meals and sandwich stuff and snacks. I will take care of everything else. You can just relax. And if you want to talk to me, I'm here. And if I don't? Izzy crossed her arms. Sam grinned. Then I'll talk to you. Her own grin betrayed her when she saw the boyish look on his face. But she stifled it quickly. Fine, she said as she stood. I'll stay, since I'm stuck without a car anyway. I guess I have no choice. But I can't promise to be pleasant. That's all right, I'm just asking you to be here. With me. Sam sat and stared out over the water. He had walked to the edge of the pier and sat with his feet dangling over the edge. The air was cold, and the breeze off the water sent a chill over him. He wore a sweater, but at the moment he wondered if he should have put on his coat. He was also beginning to wonder if this had been a good idea. It had only been a couple of hours, but he was already ready to give up. Izzy hadn't said 2 words to him since he told her they were spending the weekend alone. Sam sighed. I don't know what I expected, he thought. I tricked her into coming because I knew she wouldn't want to if I told her the truth. So of course she's not happy. He knew his thoughts weren't helping, so he started praying instead. God, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'm here. I made all these plans, and I don't even know if she will talk to me any this weekend. What do you want me to do? Be patient. I've been trying to be patient. Trust me. All right, Lord. I'm here, I'm doing what you've asked. But I can't make her want to work it out. Only you can do that. Please open her heart and help her to let me back in. I don't want to lose her. Sam brushed away a single tear. He wasn't a man known to cry. But Izzy was the one constant in his life for all of these years. Besides his family, of course. He had chased different hobbies, sports, and career choices. He changed his mind about all kinds of things, but never about Izzy. He had always thought they would have a good marriage like his parents, theirs always seemed perfect. And he hoped they would have a family like his. And for a while it seemed like they had. Even down to the 3 boys. He couldn't put his finger on when things had changed. He knew he had become critical of Izzy and the way the house looked, and how she took care of the boys. That was her job, after all. Things hadn't been perfect, but in that moment, sitting on the pier, he knew one thing. It was up to him to change the things he could, and that meant changing his own behavior. That night, as promised, Sam took care of dinner. He pulled an already prepared lasagna out of the fridge and put it in the oven. While he waited for it to cook, he pulled out the salad to go with it. As he set the table for 2, he prayed. He prayed for Izzy, for God to open her heart. But mostly he prayed that God would show him his sin and change him. He prayed for God to make him a better husband and father by making him more like Jesus. When he pulled the lasagna out of the oven, he called out to Izzy, "Sweetheart, dinner is ready." Izzy had been sitting on the couch with a book, but he had noticed that she wasn't turning very many pages. He prayed that God was speaking to her. "This looks good," Izzy said as she entered the kitchen and took a seat. She eyed him for a moment before saying, "Thanks." "My pleasure," Sam said as he took his seat beside her. "Let's pray before we start." He reached out his hand and waited for her to take it. Hesitantly, Izzy put her hand in his, but she held it like holding hands with a stranger in church. "Dear Father," Sam prayed. "Thank you for this time to spend together. Bless it, and make it what you want it to be. Bless this food and thank you for providing it. In Jesus' name, amen." "Amen," Izzy whispered as she pulled her hand away. Sam took a few bites of his food and waited to see if Izzy would speak. When she didn't, as promised, he started the conversation. "What book are you reading?" "It's called Just As I Am." "Are you enjoying it?" Sam asked. Izzy shrugged. "It's starting kind of slow, so I feel like it's hard to get into. But some of my friends said they really loved it, so I want to make it through. I guess sometimes there is a rough spot you have to go through, so you don't miss out on the whole story." Izzy glanced at him, understanding his double meaning. "Maybe. Or maybe some books just aren't for you." Sam changed the subject. "I've been reading the Gospels, stories about Jesus. I thought I knew them all, but I'm enjoying reading through them. I'm always amazed at how much Jesus really cared about people. I mean, of course he cared about people. He died on the cross for us, but he really cared about people in their everyday lives too. Like the man that came and said his daughter was sick, and Jesus healed her. Or when Mary and Martha told him that Lazarus had died, and it says he wept. Or even the woman who touched his robe, wanting to be healed. He could have just let her be healed and been on his way, but he got down on her level to look her in the eye and know who she was." Sam stopped and looked at Izzy, waiting on a response, but she gave none. "Isn't that amazing?" he asked. Izzy furrowed her eyebrows as she looked at him. "Yeah, I guess so. I mean, he was Jesus, so whatever he did was perfect. I know, but I just feel overwhelmed that the way he cared about those people, that's the way he cares about me." Izzy dropped her fork loudly onto her plate and stood up. "Sam, what in the world has gotten into you? I can't remember you ever talking about reading the Bible before, and now you're bringing it up at dinner like it's the most normal thing." Sam stood and walked to the counter where Izzy stood. "I know. I didn't mean for it to be so out of the blue. But I meant what I said. I have been reading and I'm overwhelmed by it. I know I've never talked about it before, and Izzy, I'm sorry. I want to apologize that I haven't been a good leader for our family, especially spiritually. But I want to be better, and I'm trying to learn and grow. Izzy crossed her arms and turned away from him. Can't you see that I'm trying? Sam tried to keep calm, but his voice rose a notch. Sure, I can see that. But how do I know you won't go right back to how things were? I can't take that anymore. I don't want to keep living the way we've been living. And I don't want to lose more of myself. Sam willed himself to quiet his voice. Izzy, I know. I don't want to go back there either. But I do want to remember what we were like before, when we were young and in love. I know we can't go back there either, but I want to remind ourselves what we were, and figure out how to take that and grow into what we want to become. Izzy seemed to ponder this. It seemed to diffuse her anger, but she didn't say anything else. She just went back to the table and finished eating her dinner. Sam decided it was better not to push it for now, and joined her at the table while they ate in silence. 18. 1. Zzzy woke to sunlight streaming in the window and stretched her arms out to her sides. She hit her hand on the wall. Ouch, she complained. She had forgotten she was sleeping in a twin bed. She had thought, with how generous Sam was being, that he would offer for her to sleep in the master suite and he would take another bed. But he had been firm. I'm sleeping in the master, he had said. You're welcome to join me. She had taken her bag to the upstairs room, farthest from the master bedroom, and tossed and turned half of the night. She had finally gotten a few hours of sleep when the sun woke her. No use trying to go back to sleep, she said as she rose and went to the shower. 30 minutes later, she headed downstairs in jeans and a sweater, her feet in thick socks. She found Sam in the kitchen with coffee. Thanks, she said as he handed her a hot mug. Good morning. Sam pressed a quick kiss to her temple. Izzy stepped away and took a seat at the counter. There are muffins, or I can make something warm, oatmeal maybe? Muffins are fine, Izzy said flatly. Sam handed her the Tupperware container and took a seat beside her. Anything you want to do today? Not particularly. Then can you do something for me? Izzy tried not to roll her eyes. What is it? After breakfast, let's take a walk. Izzy took 3 bites of her muffin with no answer. Come on, it will be pretty. I know you love the view of the water. And it will be good to get out and breathe in the air. Fine, Izzy said. But after breakfast, she tried to put it off. She meandered around the house, washed the 2 coffee mugs in the sink, and took as long as possible to get on her coat and shoes. When she could delay no more, she met Sam on the front porch. Ready? He asked. He wore his own coat and warm hiking boots. He had been waiting for her. As I'll ever be. She fell into step beside Sam as he started down the steps and towards a familiar trail. Do you remember the first time we walked the trail? Sam asked. Yeah, Izzy had to admit. It was the first time you came to the cabin with us for a weekend. That was back when it was just my parents and my brothers. You were the first girlfriend to come on a family trip. Izzy did remember that. It had been a fun weekend. Your mom asked me to help in the kitchen and I burned the eggs. Sam laughed. Burned is putting it nicely. You almost set the house on fire. Izzy cracked a smile. Did not. She laughed and punched his arm. Sam laughed harder. I'm pretty sure the smoke alarm was going off, and I used the sprayer from the kitchen sink to put out the flames. Izzy cleared her throat and then bit her lip, trying hard not to give in to the laughter bubbling up inside. But when Sam started acting out the scene, she lost it. She covered her mouth with her hand as she laughed out loud. Sam finished his performance of shooting pretend water onto a flaming stove. Oh, I see, you do still have a sense of humor in there. I remember another time that you laughed pretty hard. Izzy gave him a hard stare. Do you remember that time and what happened because you just couldn't stop laughing? Sam. Izzy took 2 steps back as Sam came closer slowly. What? He asked, feigning innocence. No. She held her hands up, still backing away. Don't. But before she got another word out, Sam had reached out and caught her in one arm and started tickling her with the other. Sam! Izzy shrieked. But her laugh was loud and high-pitched, and she squealed each time his fingers ran across her ribs. Remember how you couldn't contain yourself and just laughed so hard that you just, well, couldn't contain yourself? Don't make me wet my pants. Sam's laugh rumbled deep and loud as he finally stopped tickling her, but kept his arm around her. You do remember? Of course I do. Izzy tried to wriggle free, but she only succeeded in turning around to face Sam. I remember, she said, suddenly breathless as she stood face to face with the man who knew her so well. Or at least knew the person she used to be. That was a long time ago. She dropped her head and Sam released her as she took a few steps away. Doesn't seem that long ago to me, Sam said. But Izzy kept walking down the path. Sam took 3 quick strides to catch up with her, and he allowed the silence to fall between them for a while. However, the walk was anything but silent as they crunched the leaves under their feet. They continued the walk through the trees as the path wound up the hill and around several large rocks, before turning and leading to a clearing and out to the lake. Izzy stopped to take in the scene before them, as the lake seemed to stretch out for miles. Sam waited patiently for her. He stood so close she could feel his warmth beside her, and his hand brushed against hers at each breath. Do you remember when we came here for our honeymoon? Izzy sighed. Of course I remember that. I always wished I had been able to take you somewhere fancy. There wasn't any money for that then. But it was a nice honeymoon, just the same. We had a good beginning. Sam's voice was gruff. I was glad to at least have you all to myself. Izzy blushed. Let's walk to the pier. She didn't wait for him to follow her. She could feel his eyes on her as she walked all the way to the end and sat on the edge. She didn't drape her feet over the edge like she would have in the summer, but pulled her knees up to her chest and hugged them to herself. She didn't move when Sam walked out and sat beside her. She didn't even pull away when he moved in close and put his arms around her. She leaned back into his chest and let her head fall back on his shoulder. Sam, I remember all of it. It's not that. We have a past, and a lot of it was good. The problem is that I don't see good in the future. Sam's voice was full of emotion when he spoke. How can you say that? Izzy, I see so much good in our future. God has a plan for us, I know it, and I want to find out what it is. I have loved you most of my life, and that hasn't changed. Are you sure about that? Izzy's voice was calm and even. Of course I'm sure. I've never wanted anything but you, and I've spent every day since we got married trying to make a better life for you. But maybe you're trying to give me a better life instead of giving me what I need. Sam gently pushed her up so she could turn to face him. What does that mean? Izzy sighed. It's like saying you wish we could have gone somewhere better for our honeymoon. Why? We had a perfectly nice time right here. Nobody to bother us. Nothing to distract us. Just us. And all this time when I've needed you at home, needed you to be there for the boys, you're working in a way. We needed you, but you're too busy trying to make things better with money. Sam seemed to be fighting within himself. I have to work, Izzy. That's how life works. I know, but there could have been a better way. And I was just trying to survive with the kids and the house, and then to have you come home grumpy and telling me I'm not doing enough. I just don't want that anymore. If I'm going to do it alone, then at the end of the day, I just want to be left alone. Sam sat quietly. Izzy waited and waited. I don't want you to feel that way. I want us to do this together, you and me. We need to be a team. That's what marriage is supposed to be. Izzy stood up. You're right, Sam. But we're not a team. We divided up our marriage into your job and my job, and we've been going our own separate ways for a long time. So long that I forgot what it's like to work together with you. And I don't know if I can go back to that. Sam stood too and opened his mouth to speak. No, Sam. Don't. Don't say we can learn how again. Don't say you're trying. I don't need that right now. She combed her fingers through the ends of her hair. I look in the mirror and I don't even recognize myself. I had so many ideas about what my life would look like. Wild and free Izzy, my parents called me. But I don't feel wild and free anymore. I feel boring and caged and old. And I don't like it at all. Sam spoke now whether she wanted him to or not. I love you, Izzy. I loved you when we were teenagers and when we got married, and even though things have changed, I love you now. I want to remember who we were then and figure out who we are now, together. And I want to do what it takes to move forward in our marriage. Izzy looked at him long and hard. I know you do, Sam. I do care about you. You were my first true love, and I will always care about you. But I've spent my life walking alongside you, and now I need to go and figure out who I am on my own. 19. Peyton chewed her dinner as fast as she dared. She and Spencer had driven up from campus after their last class of the afternoon to meet with Pastor Owen. He was being kind enough to stay later than normal on a Friday night, and she felt bad to make him wait on them. So they had picked up food in a drive-thru, and now she was hurrying to finish before they arrived at the church. You're going to choke, Spencer said. No, I'm not, Peyton said around a big bite of food. Well, if you don't, you might throw up, Spencer laughed. She tried to smile around her food, but there wasn't room. Once she swallowed, she spoke, All right, I'll slow down. I just don't want to make us late. And I'm starving. You should have eaten before we left. I know, but I ran out of time. But you knew what time we were leaving. We talked about it all week. Peyton rolled her eyes. I know, Mr. Punctuality, I just had a lot to do. I've been a little busy in case you haven't noticed. I know, it's all right. Spencer reached over and took her hand in his, smoothing his thumb over hers. Peyton felt agitated, and his thumb rubbing hers grated on her nerves. She pulled her hand away and pretended to scratch her nose. What's wrong? Spencer asked. Nothing, she lied. Come on, tell me. Peyton let out a heavy sigh. It's just, I don't think you know how busy everything is for me. With school and wedding planning, and packing to come home almost every weekend. I thought this year would be simpler than last year, without cheerleading to worry about. But I think it's just as hard, if not harder. I'm sorry. I do understand. I have a lot going on too. I'm trying to help with the wedding planning and school. And I have all the applications for summer ministry jobs. Plus campus community. I get it. It's not a competition, Peyton said flatly. Spencer furrowed his eyebrows as he glanced at her. What do you mean? Every time I'm trying to talk to you about having a hard time with things, you just have to try to compete with me. I'm not trying to compete. Spencer's voice rose a notch. Sure you are. I say I'm busy, and you say you're busier. I say I'm tired, and you're more tired. If I say I have a lot on my plate, your plate is more important. I never said that, Spencer argued. That mine is more important. But you think that, don't you? You think that your leadership in campus community and your ministry applications for the summer are more important than my wedding planning and my school activities. Spencer took a deep breath, as if he knew whatever he said next was going to be wrong. I didn't say it was more important. But of course, this summer's ministry will be important in determining my job for the future. Which I feel like is pretty important if you want to get married. I know that, Peyton tried not to yell, but she was feeling her emotions rise. I know it's important. But we also have to have a wedding to get married. And I have to finish school with good grades to get a job after college. All of it is important. Spencer turned on his blinker before they were where they were supposed to turn. Where are you going? Peyton asked. This isn't where we turn. Spencer was silent as he turned on the road and then pulled into a grocery store parking lot. He pulled into a space and put the car in park. What are you doing? Peyton said, We're going to be late. Spencer took his hands off the wheel and turned to face her as he took both of her hands in his. As long as we're talking about what's important, this is more important than being on time. Peyton sighed and she let him lace his fingers through hers. You're right. PJ, it's not a competition. You're right about that. We aren't competing because we are on the same team. I'm on your team and you're on mine. My stuff isn't more important than yours. But we have to find a way to cheer each other on in our stuff so we can help each other. This sports ministry stuff is really in your head, isn't it? I'm hearing all the metaphors. Spencer grinned. I was talking about you cheering each other on. Ha ha, Peyton said dryly. I'm serious though. I don't want you to think that I'm belittling the things you have going on. School is important. Campus community is important. Jobs for the future is important. Don't get upset, but I know that time management hasn't been your strong point. Peyton bristled at his words. That's okay. Because God gave me time management skills and made me Mr. Punctuality, as you so lovingly put it. He winked at her. And maybe he made us different in those ways so we can help each other. I can help you in trying to be on time, and you can help me slow down and see what's really important. Peyton smiled at him. You're right. We are different. I knew that about you the first time I met you. Third. What? Third time we met. You didn't remember me until the third time we met. Peyton rolled her eyes playfully this time. See, like that. I didn't even notice the best-looking guy in the room. But you pay attention and take it all in better than me. But like you said, God can use our differences to make us better together. Yes, he can. Spencer leaned forward and pressed his lips to hers. Peyton kissed him back with joy and a sense of peace in what God was doing in them. She pushed him back gently. Enough of that, I really do want to be on time. See, you're learning to manage your time. Yes, but if I'm making a schedule, I would like to work you in for more kissing time later, she smiled from ear to ear. I would like that. Spencer put his hands on the wheel. But Peyton, I need you to know something. What's that? Peyton batted her eyelashes at him. Our wedding. He spoke the words clearly, and when his eyes met hers, she could see the determination in them. That's definitely number one on my most important things list. No competition. 20. Izzy sat at the cluttered desk in the spare bedroom of their house. It was late on Wednesday night, but she was determined to start getting in her course hours to take her real estate license. After the weekend at the cabin, she just wanted to get to work on her new project. For a moment, she remembered the look on Sam's face as she climbed in the car to leave. Jack and Russell had returned with the car, and she took the keys from her brother-in-law before Sam had a chance. Izzy grabbed her bag and walked to the driver's side, turning her head over her shoulder to tell Sam, "Ride home with your brothers." His face had shown his brokenness as he watched her go. The image was seared in her mind, but now she pushed it aside. She opened up the laptop and navigated to the website her friend had sent her. Once she started creating a login and password and was starting the course, she realized she wanted to take notes. She stepped away from the screen to find a notebook. Izzy went to the bookshelf and started lifting books, papers, and odds and ends that had been shoved in the room at one time or another. Most likely when they were having company, and she was attempting to make the house presentable. She found a notebook and flipped through the pages, but it seemed to be full. She continued her search. On the next shelf, she came upon a portfolio and immediately smiled. She didn't have to open it to know what was inside. But she opened it, and it was like a light turned on inside her soul. Her college art portfolio. She knew she should get back to the work at hand, but she couldn't resist turning to the first page. There were dozens of pages of just practice. Strokes and shading. And then she began pencil drawings and finally her own works of art. Mostly landscapes, but there were also a few portraits of unknown faces. It was no surprise that her favorite pieces were the ones that included water. A painting of the lake. A watercolor of a beach scene. Seeing the colors on the page, she felt like she could breathe it in. The image leapt off the page, and she ran her fingers gently over the paper, trying to remember the feeling of the paintbrush in her hands. How long had it been since she had held a paintbrush? Or a pencil to draw with? She couldn't say. With a sigh, she snapped the portfolio shut. She looked on another shelf for something to write in. Finally, she found a notebook that seemed to have some blank pages, at least the back half was empty. She took a seat at the desk and grabbed a pen. "Take two," she said as she clicked the computer screen. But as she looked back at the notebook in her hand, something about it seemed familiar, maybe even important. She tried to focus on the blank page in front of her, a place to start her new adventure in this moment. But she turned the pages back to the front, and the words became memories in front of her eyes. This was the notebook she had bought when she and Sam were engaged. The first page read, "Love one another, a study on marriage." She had doodled hearts and their initials on the page. Flipping the pages was like walking through their engagement all over again. Alongside the Bible study, she had written notes about wedding plans and written her first name with his last over and over again. She expected to see all the usual marriage verses, like "Husbands love your wives" and "Wives submit to your husband." But more than that, she saw one verse that stuck out. "Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, just as God in Christ forgave you." Kind? Izzy thought, were we kind to each other? She thought of the number of times that Sam had come home grumpy and complaining. Then she thought of how often she yelled when she wanted him to do something, or when she felt like he had done a task the wrong way. "I guess not," she whispered. The next words popped off the page like a billboard in front of her, "Forgiving one another." She sighed. There hasn't been a lot of forgiving going on. "I forgive you." The words were almost audible to her ears. But even more to her heart. It led her to do something she hadn't done in a long time. "God," she began, "are you there?" She waited. "I haven't prayed in a long time, and I'm not really sure where to start. I've been going through a rough patch. I don't know how I got here, but I don't like it. I need something new and different. I need to know who I am and what I'm supposed to do. You are my daughter. And I'm Sam's wife and the boy's mom. But that's who I am to other people. I don't know who I am." Another voice, not gentle and quiet like the one she heard before, but one that was dark and demanding, came now. "You are no one." Tears came as Izzy let that voice wash over her. She didn't want to believe it. But it was hard to fight. She had been a wife and mom for so long that it was hard to see herself as anything else. She desperately wanted to be someone. "God," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "God, I don't know who I am. I started out as the daughter of two serious, reserved, demanding people. Then I was with Sam. I became the girlfriend and then wife of the fun, entertaining guy. And now I'm the mom of 3 boys. But I don't know when I've had my own identity. I've lost sight of what I want to be and who I am." She stopped because she wasn't sure what else to say or how to pray. She didn't know what she was asking. She hung her head in her hands, waiting for some kind of answer. "God, what do I do?" "Walk with me." Izzy sighed. "I don't know how to do that anymore." The notebook in front of her made her feel guilty that she had wandered so far from where she once was. But that didn't change anything. Izzy had determined that she was going to find what made her happy, and gave her an identity of her own. She snapped the notebook shut and went back to her desk. She pulled a piece of plain paper from the printer and turned her attention to her computer screen. Take 3. Sam sat in front of his own laptop computer staring at the screen, but he hadn't moved in several minutes. He couldn't tell whether he was thinking or silently praying. Probably a little of both. There was a knock on the door of the spare bedroom, where he sat on the bed. "Come in," he said. Jack poked his head in. "Hey, what's up?" "Not much," Sam said, closing the laptop. "Have you talked to Izzy this week?" "Not since we left the cabin." Jack shook his head. "I'm sorry. I can't believe she is acting this way." Sam rubbed his chin. "I want to say I can't either. But I guess now I can see why she's been so upset. Things haven't been good. I would have said they were all right, but I was fooling myself. But you've provided for her, and it's not like you're abusive. Jack defended his brother. No, maybe not physically. But I have talked down to her and criticized her. I haven't been easy to live with. That is, when I've been around. Which hasn't been a lot. Sam shook his head. Jack, God has really been showing me all the things I've been doing wrong. I always wanted to be a good husband and a good dad, but I haven't been. I've been a lazy husband. Maybe I'm a good dad when I'm home, but that's because I'm fun. I haven't been teaching and training my sons like I should. Izzy is not handling things the right way, but a lot of this is still my fault, and I need to take responsibility. I'm glad you are trying, Jack said. So what's your plan? When are you moving home? Sam laughed. Trying to get rid of me. Jack's tone was serious. No, I'm not. But I want you to save your marriage. Sam matched Jack's tone. I do too, but I'll be honest. At this point, I don't think I can do that. He paused. Only God can do that. Jack sighed. You're right. I'm praying for you, and praying that God will work in Izzy's heart. And that he will save your marriage. Thanks, bro. That's what I'm praying too. Jack patted his brother on the shoulder and turned to leave the room. Once he closed the door, Sam went back to his computer. He hadn't been able to focus, but he whispered a prayer. God, you know what I need to do now. I'm asking you to save my marriage. Work in Izzy's heart and allow her to let me back in. And show me the way to do that. He cleared his throat to fight off the emotion welling up inside of him. Amen. He opened a new browser on the computer. With a clear idea in his head of what he needed to do, he began something he hadn't thought he would ever do again. But in his mind, he settled on the plan. I'm officially looking for a new job. 21. Izzy sat wringing her hands. Why did I agree to this? She thought to herself. I should have made up an excuse. But in reality, she knew she was tired of making up lies. Gladys had called and asked Izzy to meet her for lunch. It's been so long since we've had a girls' lunch, Gladys said. She had always treated her daughters-in-law just like they were her own daughters, and lunches together were not out of the ordinary. Izzy felt sure that Gladys knew what was going on with her and Sam. Especially after the cabin caper. But still she felt like she couldn't say no to the invitation. So here she sat, waiting for Gladys to arrive. Izzy fidgeted with the menu, and then her napkin. Finally, she clasped her hands together under the table and told herself to sit still. Just in time, too. Gladys came walking in the restaurant. Hey, Izzy plastered on a fake smile. Izzy. Gladys hugged her daughter-in-law. How are you? Good, Izzy lied. I'm sorry I'm late. I got held up at the church. We're setting up for our fall festival dinner. That's all right. Izzy went back to fidgeting with the menu. Have you decided what you want? I already know without looking. Sure, Izzy said. Gladys waved over a waitress, and they both placed their orders. That out of the way, Gladys jumped into conversation. How are the boys? They're good. I just feel like they're all going 3 different directions at once. Gladys laughed. Oh yes. I remember those days. And if they weren't conspiring against me, they were fighting with each other. Yes, exactly. For just a moment, Izzy remembered that she was sitting across the table from someone who might understand what her life was like. Most days I feel like I just can't keep up. Gladys patted her hand. I understand. Really, I do. It was as if she had just read Izzy's mind. These are some of the hardest days. They're still young, and I know they are a handful. But it won't always be like this. They grow up fast, and even though it's hard, it's a special time. Izzy wiped at a tear that threatened to fall. She tried to hide it but knew Gladys had seen. I'm just tired, she said. Sweet girl, I'm so sorry. Tell me what's been going on. Was she serious? Didn't she know? Surely Sam had told her. Or she had figured it out. Has Sam said anything? Gladys' face showed genuine shock. No, he hasn't. Is something wrong? Her voice was full of concern. Izzy sniffed, but pushed her emotions aside. No. It's all right. He's just been gone a lot, and I've been a little overwhelmed. The house meals, I mean the food for 3 boys. Oh, just wait until they're teenagers, Gladys laughed. Izzy laughed too. We'll never afford it. You will, you just get creative. Gladys shrugged. But Izzy, really, I'm so sorry that things are so hard. How can I help? The kindness of her mother-in-law almost broke the wall she had put up. Izzy bit her lip to keep from giving in to the emotion she was feeling. I don't know. That's the thing, I don't even know what would help. Would it help you to get a break? I know the older 2 are at school, but what if I took Charlie so you could have a morning off? Izzy considered this idea as the waitress brought their food and drinks. She waited for Gladys to pray, as she knew she would. Gladys bowed her head and took Izzy's hand. Dear Father, thank you for this food. Thank you for our time together. Minister to Izzy today and let her know how much you care about her. And show us a way to ease her burden. Amen. Amen, Izzy whispered. Thank you, she said to Gladys. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Izzy didn't know what else to say, and Gladys seemed to be waiting for her to continue the conversation. Finally she spoke, thank you for the offer. I'm not even sure what I would do with the alone time. Gladys carefully chewed her food, seemingly in thought. Izzy, let me give you this piece of advice. Yes, it's hard being a mom of young children. And being a good wife, and taking care of a home. But something I would recommend is to find something you enjoy doing yourself. Pick a hobby or an interest and spend time doing that. Take care of yourself by taking the time to do something for you. And even though I know it's hard to do that, when you do, you will be a better wife and mom for it. That does sound nice. But you're right. I don't know how I would find the time. I think you can if you try. Talk to Sam. I'm sure if you work together, you can figure it out. He will help you if he knows there's something you need. And I'm happy to help too. But I think it would be good to talk to Sam. Izzy nodded, but she wasn't sure that would happen. And Izzy, the most important thing I can tell you is this. Love your husband. Take time together to spend with each other. Your children are important, and it's easy to let them take over all your time. But it's important to put your marriage first. If your marriage is right, parenting together is much easier. And your kids will know too, when their mom and dad love each other and treat each other well. Thanks, I'll try to remember that. Izzy smiled and went back to eating her lunch. She wanted to take Gladys' advice to heart. She was trying to find time for herself and wanting desperately to be herself again. As to the other advice, Izzy was afraid it was too late for that. And don't forget my offer. I can work it in my schedule to have Charlie one morning every week. You just let me know. I will. And Izzy meant it. But she wasn't sure how willing Gladys would be if Izzy was only Izzy and no longer Sam and Izzy. 22. Texting had never been Sam's strong point. He was better in person than he was at carefully crafting the right thing to say. But texting had become a way that he could tell Izzy how he was feeling without her shutting him down. Sure, maybe she didn't read them. Or maybe she didn't respond. But he was putting it out there, and that was the best he could do right now. He typed out a text as he ate lunch at his desk. I saw a commercial for this and it made me think of you. He attached the link to a commercial for Taco Bell. Izzy had loved eating there when they were in college. Especially since it was cheap. They ate there multiple times a month, if not multiple times a week. But Sam couldn't help poking fun of her, since she hadn't been able to stand the thought of Taco Bell since her first pregnancy. Izzy hadn't responded to many of Sam's texts, so he was surprised to read the words on his screen from her. Ha ha, very funny. He laughed as he texted back, I still can't believe you won't eat it anymore. So many good memories. Izzy responded, things change. Sam, what do you eat now, McDonald's? Izzy, Chick-fil-A. Sam, I could go for some Chick-fil-A. We could take the boys for dinner? Izzy, we have dinner plans already. Sam, some other time then. No more responses came. Sam laced his fingers behind his head and leaned back in his desk chair. He checked his watch and realized he needed to leave soon. He gathered his things and tossed his lunch wrappers in the trash. He stopped in the bathroom, on his way out of the building, to check his appearance. He ran his fingers through his hair and reminded himself that he would slip on his tie and jacket in the car. But for now, he had to get out the door. He had an interview to get to. An hour later, he was back in his car. He felt like the interview had gone well. One strength of his personality was that he could talk to anybody about anything. He tried to highlight his strengths and show he would be a good fit for the position. But he knew it was helpful to be a likable guy that someone would want around. Before he cranked the car, he bowed his head down on the steering wheel. God, if this is what you have for me, please let me get the job. It would be different, but I would be home for dinner every night. Right now, I think that's the most important thing. Izzy needs to see that I'm committed to her and to making this work. So Lord, please provide a way for me to show that to her. As Sam pulled out of the parking spot, he felt a peace that God would handle the job situation. But he also had a brand idea, and he couldn't wait to put it into play. Izzy loaded the last plate into the dishwasher and started it. She had spent the afternoon working to accomplish more of her training sessions, but she managed to throw the ingredients for chicken fajitas in the crock-pot. She had decided she needed to be more self-sufficient if she was going to go at the parenting thing alone. And that meant she needed to stop waiting until 4 o'clock to decide on dinner and not pick up takeout so much. The boys had scarfed down their dinner, so she counted that a win and made a mental note to keep that recipe in the rotation. As she left the kitchen, she headed to the living room to sit with Benja, who had asked for help with his homework. She planned to get in another hour or so of training videos once the boys were in bed, but she wanted to spend time with the kids now. She struggled through the math problems with Benja, played a card game with Wilson, and read a few books to Charlie. She made sure they all brushed their teeth well, sang them a song in bed, and tiptoed out of their rooms after kissing them on the forehead. Downstairs, she fixed herself a cup of tea to keep her awake, then settled in on the couch with her laptop and notebook. She was just about to hit play on the video training when her phone buzzed. Sam texted, Hey, hope you and the boys had a good day. Tell them I miss them. Izzy, I miss you too. Izzy was torn between smiling and rolling her eyes. She had been getting 3 or 4 texts a day from Sam, similar to this one. Telling her he was thinking about her, saying he cared about her, sweet little notes. Part of her wanted to enjoy it, the high school girl part of her. But the grown-up part of her felt annoyed. She had told him she wanted time to figure things out, and he just kept trying to get under her skin. True, he did the same thing in high school, and it worked then. But I'm a grown woman now, and the same tricks don't work on me. I've seen how he is every day, and it's not this sweet romantic guy that he's pretending to be now. She flipped her phone over and went back to her computer without responding to the text. But he wasn't to be ignored. A few minutes later, her phone buzzed again. Can we go to dinner together Saturday night? Just you and me. The boys will be expecting me to be home for the weekend. Izzy sighed. She wanted to say no, since she had already been tricked into spending time with him before. But at least he wasn't tricking her this time. Don't you want to spend time with the boys, though? She texted back. I'll be there Friday afternoon and evening, and all day Saturday and Sunday. But Saturday night I would to talk with you in person. Izzy drummed her fingers on the keyboard. Reluctantly, she typed her short response, okay. After that, Sam left her alone, and she watched 3 training videos before her eyes started to close without her permission. She made a few notes to remember where she was and closed her laptop. She made her way upstairs and into her bathroom. She dressed for bed, washed her face, and brushed her teeth. It was the same routine she had been doing for years. But lately, every time she started the familiar routine, a gnawing feeling began to grow in the pit of her stomach. It would start as she headed upstairs, slowly at first, but by the time she was ready to crawl into bed, she nearly felt sick. She wasn't afraid to be alone in the house. She had gotten used to it when Sam started traveling. Deep down, she knew that it was the thought of going to bed alone every single night that was getting to her. And that was a decision she had made for herself. 23. A corsage seemed like a cheesy idea. But Sam had decided he was going all in, so corsage it was. He clasped the clear plastic box with a single rose inside in his hands, trying to decide if he should take it in the house. He opted to leave it in the car for now. He had gone to pick it up, using the excuse of going to pick up milk at the store for Izzy. Gladys' car was in the driveway when he pulled in, so he knew his mom was inside, and he and Izzy could leave as soon as he went in. He sat in the driveway for a few minutes, gathering his nerves and praying. He rubbed the back of his neck, sore from sleeping on the couch the night before. He laid the corsage in the passenger seat and climbed out of the car. "There's chili in the crock-pot, and then they can watch a movie after dinner," Izzy was saying when Sam walked in the kitchen. "That's perfect, we'll be fine," Gladys said. "Are you all ready to go?" She glanced over at Izzy, who was in a t-shirt and jeans. "I think so." Izzy raised her eyebrows and looked at Sam. Confusion washed over her face as she looked at him. He had changed clothes before he left, but she hadn't seen him. He had put on dress slacks and a button-down shirt and tie. I guess I might change." "It's fine, we have a few minutes." "I'm happy to wait for you," Sam said. "All right." Izzy furrowed her eyebrows and slowly turned to walk up the stairs. "I'm glad you're doing this," Gladys said when Izzy was out of earshot. "I think Izzy needs some time with you." Sam looked at the floor. He didn't like that he wasn't being forthright with his parents. "I think so too," he said. He treaded carefully, but wanted to open up. "Mom, pray for us. Things they haven't been great." He didn't want to say too much. Gladys put her hand on his arm. "I've been praying. I don't need to know the details unless you want to tell me. But I'll keep praying. God has a plan. Don't give up on her, son." "Thanks, Mom." He gave her a quick hug and then went to say goodbye to the boys. He took a seat on the couch, since Izzy was taking a little longer than he expected. But a few minutes later, when he heard footsteps on the stairs, he turned to look and knew it was worth the wait. Izzy had changed into a deep purple dress that fell just below her knees. The black heels with black straps were his favorite of her shoes, but he hadn't seen her wear them in a long time. His mouth fell open when he saw her, rendering him speechless. "Wow," he finally managed as she reached the bottom of the stairs. "You look beautiful." He took her hand in his. He looked her in the eyes, but when their eyes met, she quickly looked away. "Thanks," she said. "Are you ready?" "Absolutely." Boys were going. "Be good for Grandma." The boys called out that they would, and Gladys waved as they walked out the front door. Izzy walked to the passenger side door and was surprised when Sam came around with her to open the door. "Thanks," she said as she looked at him quizzically. "You're welcome." She started to sit, but stopped when she saw the corsage in her seat. "What is this?" "It's for you," was all Sam said as he closed the door and walked to his side. "What for?" Izzy asked when Sam was beside her. "Does it look familiar?" "Of course," Izzy said. She recognized the corsage immediately. It was exactly the same as the one he bought her for their first homecoming dance together. She waited for Sam to explain further, but he didn't. So she just sat in the seat holding the corsage in her lap. "No way am I wearing this," she thought to herself. "You don't have to wear it if you don't want to. But it reminded me of when we were younger, and I wanted to get it for you." Izzy changed the subject. "So, what did you want to talk about tonight?" "We have plenty of time at the restaurant," Sam said. He reached out and smoothed his hand over hers, but put his hand back on the wheel when she pulled away. What is he up to? Izzy wondered as they pulled into the restaurant parking lot. The name of the place had changed, but it looked mostly the same. She hadn't been here in years, but she would never forget where they ate dinner for homecoming that year. Sam, she started to say. Shush. Don't say anything right now. Let's just go in. But tonight, I just want to try to remember. Izzy sighed as she climbed from the car. Sam joined her, and they entered the restaurant where Sam told the staff they had a reservation. The hostess took them to a table near the back. Izzy couldn't be sure it was exactly the same table, but it seemed like it. She tried to busy herself with the menu and avoided looking at Sam while the waiter took their drink orders. Do you want to go ahead and order food? Sam asked. Izzy wasn't sure yet what she wanted, but she wanted to hurry through dinner, so she chose quickly. Yes, I'll have the grilled shrimp and pasta. She handed the waiter the menu. Excellent choice, the waiter said. And for you, sir? I'll have the steak, medium rare, with a baked potato. Sam handed over his menu as he said, and we would like the artichoke dip for an appetizer. Yes, sir. The waiter left them alone. Now Izzy had nothing to do with her hands and nowhere to avert her eyes. So how are you? Sam asked. Izzy knew she couldn't ignore him all night, but she could give him short answers. Fine. I mean, really? How have you been this week? Anything new going on at the house? Izzy gave him a hard stare. Why are you doing this, Sam? His eyes were soft. Because I want to know how you are. Izzy huffed and chose to say the thing he didn't want to hear. I'm fine. I've had a busy week. I'm studying to get my real estate license. Shock washed over Sam's face. Really? I had no idea you wanted to go into real estate. I need something to help pay the bills. Sam seemed to ponder that for a moment. Do we have extra expenses coming up? I thought we were doing all right. Izzy rolled her eyes. Sam, I need to have a job so I can be more independent. She saw that wounded him, and she felt a twinge in her heart. She didn't really want to hurt him. Is real estate what you really want to do? Have you thought about doing that before? Izzy shrugged. I hadn't really thought about it before, but a friend of mine does it and it offers a flexible schedule so I can still be there for the boys. Gotcha. Well, if that's something you really want to do, I'm happy for you to pursue that. And I will be happy to help you make that work. How will you do that with your work schedule? If you need to do showings on Saturdays or evenings, I will take the boys. And my boss has said that weeks I'm out of town I can have some flex time when I'm back, so I could help more those weeks. Izzy's emotions softened. Okay, thanks. I appreciate it. Sam reached out and took her hands in his. Izzy, I know I haven't had a great track record. But I want you to know that I want to help you, and I want to give you what you need to be happy. If that's real estate, then I'll help you do that. Izzy dropped her gaze from his eyes to their hands. She didn't pull away, but her mind drifted. Is this what I want? She asked herself. But there was no clear answer. Just then, the server returned with their meals and Izzy pulled her hands back to make room for her plate. They changed the subject to lighter topics as they ate. They talked about their homecoming date at this spot and laughed about classmates they remembered. When they were done eating, the waiter returned and asked if they wanted to see a dessert menu. Thanks, but we have other plans. Sam wiggled his eyebrows at Izzy. He paid the bill and stood to go. Izzy eyed him as he took her hand and led her out of the restaurant, wondering where they were headed next. 30 minutes later, she didn't have to wonder anymore. Sam had driven through a fast food restaurant and ordered them both large chocolate milkshakes. Then he drove straight to the high school football field. Izzy gave him a look as if to say, I know what you're doing. The parking lot was empty, and the field was quiet as Sam took Izzy's arm and walked her through the ticket gates. Is this allowed? Izzy asked. It's unlocked. Sam shrugged. No one is here. I would hate to get arrested for trespassing. It's all right. My mom can handle the boys. Sam's eyes danced as he laughed at his own joke. The sound of his laugh warmed Izzy in the cold evening air. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Izzy knew she sounded much more serious than her high school self that had walked through those gates hundreds of times. All right, I confess. You know my buddy Kyle is the principal now. I checked in with him to make sure no one calls the cops. He said it would be fine. Okay then. They fell silent as Sam led her into the stadium and turned to walk up the steps. He climbed just a few rows before taking a seat and patting the seat beside him. Izzy seemed reluctant, but took a seat several inches from him. She turned and stared at the field, memories flooding her mind. The cool air on her face and the feel of the concrete she sat on was so very familiar. She and Sam had attended countless football games there, and came back for several homecoming games when they were in college. Izzy, Sam whispered. She turned to him and felt the sting of tears in her eyes. Sam, we're not the same people. Yes, we are. We've just grown up. But we've changed. That's true. But I don't think we're supposed to stay the same forever. People change and grow, and that's a good thing. Then why are we here? We can't just go back in time and be who we were. A lot of time has passed since we went to homecoming the first time. Sam scooted closer to Izzy, his face inches from hers. He locked his eyes with hers in a serious expression. Izzy, I know a lot of time has passed. And of course I know I was recreating our date from all those years ago. But I brought you here for a reason. I'm not trying to go backwards. But I wanted to remind you what we were like back then. Not so we can go back, but so we can go forward. I sat in this stadium at homecoming that night, and I could see my whole life in front of me. I didn't know what I wanted to do, or who I might be. But I knew I wanted to be with you forever. That night I told you for the first time that I loved you. Izzy brushed away a single tear that trailed down her cheek. I know, she whispered. I meant it then, and I mean it now. I loved you then, because you were the most incredible girl I had ever met. You made me laugh, and you added joy and happiness to every day of my life. And now I still think you are the most incredible woman. You love our boys and take care of them. You are the best mom. You make our house a home in a way that I could never do. You are beautiful and funny, and you still bring so much joy and happiness to my life. I wanted to bring you here to say that I love you. I always have and I always will. Izzy seemed to be taking it all in. Sam, I don't know what to say. Say we can work this out. Say that you still love me, and that we will work through this together. I want you to be happy, and I still think we can be happy together. But I don't know if this is what I want. I'm not the same person I was when we were in high school. In fact, I don't know who I am. I do, Sam said. You're Izzy. But you just know who I am in relation to you and our kids. That's not who I am on my own. I still need to figure that out. Sam sighed. Then I will wait. But Izzy, I have spent a lot of time praying the last few weeks. Begging God to show me what to do, and asking Him to bring us back together. I haven't been a good spiritual leader for our family, and I'm sorry. But I know this, who you are should be who God wants you to be. Please pray and ask Him who you are. Because I've been begging Him to show you who you are is wonderful. Izzy sniffed. Really? Yes, really. Thanks. Izzy let Sam's words wash over her. The fact that he had prayed for her stirred something inside of her. She knew that he meant what he said. And that gave her things to think about. Please, Izzy, I don't want to be without you. Please say we can work this out. Izzy bit her bottom lip as she considered his words. She still didn't feel ready to walk back into marriage and pretend things were all right. But maybe, just maybe. She breathed out a heavy sigh. I'm still not sure, she said. But we can try. Before she could look up, Sam kissed her quickly on the lips. Thank you, Iz. That's all I need for now. As they rose to leave the stadium, Izzy felt an uncertainty in her spirit. That dark voice was saying, be careful. Don't let him back in too fast. She knew she would be careful. But as she lifted her fingers to her lips, she also felt the electricity from that short kiss and wondered what it would be like to feel more of that. 24. Yes, sir. I appreciate the offer. Sam spoke into his phone Wednesday morning. Yes, I understand about the hours. He rubbed his back. Izzy had agreed to let him stay at the house, since pretending to be gone for work was getting too difficult with the boys. But he was still sleeping on the couch. He hoped that wouldn't last much longer. Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. See you soon. He hung up and clapped his hands together. This was an interesting development, and he felt excitement and nerves blending all together. Now I have some decisions to make, he said to himself. I'll have to figure out how to bring it up to Izzy, and what to do. The only thing he knew was that he would take his time, because right now he didn't have the answer. Izzy carried a load of laundry to the couch and sat down to fold it. She picked up a blanket that had fallen on the floor. She glanced around to see if anyone might notice, and then she held it to her nose and took in a big breath. Sam. She knew that cologne anywhere, and it always reminded her of cuddling next to him the very first time at his parents' house in high school. She giggled a little, and then wrapped the blanket around her as she picked up a shirt from the basket. Sam was home, but he was upstairs building a Lego mansion with the boys. It's nice having him home, she thought. She had wanted to fight it, but she had to admit it. He was being helpful and attentive, and she really thought he had changed. After dinner, he had even helped her load the dishes and took out the trash without her asking. Izzy had told herself to be cautious, but she felt herself falling for that Samuel Pierce charm in a whole new way. She smiled at the thought. She had been so distracted the last few days that she hadn't done any more of her training videos. She still wanted to go through with getting her license. Might as well watch a video while I fold laundry, she thought. She started to go retrieve her computer from the office when she noticed Sam's laptop sitting on the coffee table. Even better, she thought. She opened up the computer, hoping she could remember her login information, when she saw an email from Sam's boss open. She never read his work emails, but she expected it to be a list of tasks or telling him he was going out of town. She let her gaze scan over it and was surprised by the content. Sam, here are the details about the new position as we discussed. The position will include a 10% pay increase and use of a company truck. Izzy's eyes grew wide, and she began to feel excited about more income and benefits. She read on. As I mentioned, you will work 2 weekends a month at minimum and expect to travel most weeks. We have been impressed with your leadership skills as you have moved up in the company, and we look forward to giving you more responsibility as you move into this new role. Izzy's heart raced, and she felt like her blood was boiling with anger. How could he? She whispered through clenched teeth. How long has he known about this? And he's just been buttering me up for it. She closed the computer and fought the urge to throw it across the room. I won't put up with this, she thought to herself. We're done. He's been lying to me about helping more and trying to make things better. If he's going to be gone all the time, then he can just be gone from me for good. She put the computer back where she found it, more gently than she wanted to, and stomped up the stairs where she shut the door and locked it. She had been thinking about letting Sam sleep in their room tonight. But not anymore. No more, she said to herself through clenched teeth. No more. Izzy was calmer when she came out to tell the boys to get ready for bed, and she remained calm as she tucked them in and kissed them goodnight. Sam was in the room with her, smiling and hugging the boys. Izzy ignored him, so her anger wouldn't rise to the surface. Not yet, she told herself. Once they were all settled, she headed back downstairs to finish the pile of laundry that she had abandoned. When she first read the email, she had planned to yell at Sam. But she had decided that wasn't best for anyone. She had been clear when she said if nothing was going to change, she wanted out. So now she didn't need to yell and argue. But she knew nothing was going to change, and so must he if he was hiding the new position from her. She waited for the right time. Sam came through the living room, headed into the kitchen. He paused as he passed by to kiss Izzy on the cheek. She continued working on the laundry. Sam tried making small talk, but Izzy only responded with MMHMMS. Izzy, what is it? Sam obviously knew something was wrong. What? Everything was fine earlier, but now you're not looking me in the eye and barely answering me. What's wrong? Why don't you tell me? What do you mean? Is there anything new with you? Sam hemmed and hawed. No, not really. Nothing you want to tell me? Like about your job? What do you know? So there is something to tell, Izzy accused him. I guess, but how did you find out? I was just waiting for the right time to tell you. Izzy's face was red. I guess there's no right time to spring on me that your boss is promoting you to a job where you'll be gone more and work more hours when you're here. Sam furrowed his eyebrows, but he raised his hands to stop her. Wait, let me explain. There's nothing to explain. I was going to use your laptop, and I saw the email from your boss. It was all pretty clear. Sam shook his head. I haven't given him an answer yet. I don't want to be gone more. I want to be here. You know what, Sam? Save it. I told you, I've been doing this pretty much on my own for a long time now. I'm used to it. So if you're going to be gone, just be gone. But I don't need you to come home and fake being helpful for a few days a month. I said I was done, and I am. I'm going to bed, don't follow me. Tomorrow we'll figure out how to tell the boys. Izzy hurried up the stairs and shut the door to her room. She wanted Sam out of her sight. And she didn't want him to see the tears that she cried. 25. Sitting at his desk at work on Thursday morning, Sam tried to process everything that had happened. He tried to talk to Izzy this morning, but she didn't want to say anything in front of the boys. And he wasn't sure what he should say, especially since he had considered the job offer from his boss. Of course, more money would be good, and moving up in leadership would be good for him in the long run. Who wouldn't at least think about it? Sam thought to himself. But he did want to be home more. That was why he had interviewed for another job. But he didn't have any news about that yet, and he couldn't tell Izzy anything about it until he did. He was still pondering how he could fix things when his cell phone vibrated on his desk. It was his mom calling, but he just didn't think he could talk to her right now. He hadn't been upfront with her, and he was sure she knew that. He couldn't stand the idea of disappointing her with a failed marriage. His phone stopped ringing, and seconds later it started all over again. His mom was calling again. He knew he should answer since she never did that. Hey, Mom. Sam, I'm calling for Izzy. I told her I would get in touch with you. Benja got hurt at school. Some kind of accident on the playground. We're not certain on the details, but I'm meeting her to get Charlie, and she's meeting the ambulance at the hospital. Hospital. Ambulance. The words swirled in Sam's mind, and he couldn't process the information. Sam? Sam? Did you hear me? His mother's voice snapped him to attention. I heard you, Mom. His shook his head, trying to clear his mind. What hospital? I'm leaving now. He grabbed his keys as Gladys gave him the details. All they knew was that he had hit his head and lost consciousness. Sam tried calling Izzy several times as he drove as fast as possible to the hospital. Each time he got no answer. He arrived at the emergency room entrance, parked, and ran in the building. He walked to the desk to ask for information. I'm Sam Pierce, my son Benja Pierce is here. He was brought in by ambulance. I haven't been able to get a hold of my wife. The nurse checked the chart and asked him to follow her through a set of double doors. The triage area was full of beds with curtains separating the patients. When the nurse pointed to a curtain, Sam gently pulled it back to peek in. Once he saw Izzy in the chair and Benja lying on the bed, he flung the curtain back and walked in. Sam. Izzy's face was red and her cheeks were tear-stained. Oh, Sam. She went to him and collapsed into his arms. What happened? Is he all right? Izzy stepped away from him and sniffled as she went to stand beside Benj's bed. I think so. He fell off a high platform on the playground. The teacher said some of the boys were playing rough, and he was knocked over. He landed on his arm, but he must have hit his head on the pole. He was unconscious when the teacher got to him. Fear washed over Sam and his face went pale. And he's still unconscious? No, Sam, he's not. She seemed to realize she hadn't explained that well. He woke up a few minutes after. He's just sleeping now, from the pain medicine for his arm. It's broken in 2 places. Oh. Sam all but collapsed into the chair. What else did the doctor say? They are running a couple of tests on his head, and they want to keep him at least a few hours to monitor him. And they will be back soon to set his arm and put him in a cast. Izzy, I was so scared when I heard. Me too. Izzy covered her mouth with her hand. Sam reached out and took her other hand in his. I don't even think I told them I was leaving at work. I just walked out. I couldn't get here fast enough. Really? Izzy turned to face him with a look of surprise. His eyes met hers. Of course. I was terrified, and my mom didn't have many details. I tried calling you. His voice was calm and free of accusation. I'm sorry. I think I left it in the car. I was in a hurry, too. I'm sure you were. It's all right. He stood and rubbed his hands up and down her arms. He could feel her chill bumps, and he didn't know if it was the temperature of the hospital or the fear permeating her. The curtain was pulled back just then, and a man in a white coat appeared. Hello, I'm Dr. Jones. Sam Pierce. He reached out to shake the doctor's hand. Mr. Pierce, your son's tests all look good. It seems he just got a good knock on his head. Sam blew out the breath he was holding without knowing. I'm glad it's not worse. Yes, unfortunately, we start to see a larger number of head injuries in boys this age. They like to play rough. Sam chuckled. Yes, they do. We have 3 boys, they're all pretty tough. He wanted to reach out and tussle Benj's hair, but he resisted the urge. What about his arm? The doctor pulled an X-ray from the chart and put it in the light box on the wall. He pointed. Unfortunately, that seems to be where he took the brunt of his fall. It's broken here and here. But kids this age seem to heal pretty quickly. So we will set the bone and put it in a cast. He will probably be in the cast for about 6 weeks. But I want it rechecked in 2 weeks to make sure it's healing properly. Do we come back to you for the recheck? You are welcome to, but if you have a family orthopedist that you would like to see, you can make an appointment and take him there. Got it. Thanks, Doc. Sam said. Since he's asleep now, I'll get my team in to set the bones. The doctor disappeared and was back just a few minutes later with 2 additional people. I don't think I can watch this. Izzy put one hand over her mouth and the other to her stomach. That's all right, the doctor said. It might be better if you wait outside. But don't worry, he will sleep through it. Sam took Izzy's hand and led her outside the curtain and a few steps away to some chairs, where he sat down and pulled her down next to him. When she covered her face and sniffled, Sam put his arm around her shoulders and pulled her close to him. She buried her face in his chest. After Izzy had cried silently for a couple of minutes, she straightened up in her seat and ran a finger under each eye. I guess it's silly, he's fine really. But I don't think anything prepares you for getting a call that your child is in an ambulance. It's not silly. Sam spoke gently. You're right. I wasn't prepared either. But he's going to be just fine. It will be a good story when he's older. All boys need some battle scars. Izzy laughed. True. How else will he impress the girls? Exactly. Sam grinned. Admit it, that's what drew you to me in the first place, isn't it? Izzy rolled her eyes. Oh yeah, that was it. Sam poked her in the ribs, making her laugh again. He was tempted to tickle her, when the doctor came walking over. Sam and Izzy both stood to their feet when they saw him. He did just fine, the doctor said. We've turned off the sedation meds, so he'll start waking up soon and they'll take him to get the cast on. Thank you, Izzy said and hurried off to see her son. Thanks, Sam said as he shook hands with the doctor again before following Izzy. Benja's eyes were beginning to flutter open when Sam walked in. Dad, he asked weakly. He looked confused about what was going on. Hey bud, I'm here. Do you know where you are? Benja looked around. The hospital. Yep, that's right. You fell and hit your head and hurt your arm. Sam watched his son closely and gratefully. Yeah, I remember that. But I don't remember falling asleep. Sam grinned. They gave you a little medicine to help you relax while they fixed your arm. Now you just have to wait to get a cast. What color do you want to get? Blue, Benja said immediately. Sounds good, bud. Blue is my favorite color too. Izzy closed the door on Benja's bedroom after telling him goodnight. She pressed her palm on the door and leaned against it, squeezing her eyes shut as the tears began to sting. She stayed like that for just a minute before she retreated to her room. There she crashed onto the bed and buried her face in her pillow as she cried. She felt like her heart stopped when she got the call that Benja was going to the emergency room. She was thankful it wasn't worse, but that didn't help her emotions just then. Benja had smiled for a picture with his new cast, and her heart broke all over again. Her sweet boy in so much pain but smiling through it. I haven't been smiling through anything, Izzy thought to herself. I've been grumbling and complaining for months. Guilt hit her full force as she thought about how she had complained about taking care of her kids. She had felt tired and pushed to her limits, and she complained countless times about her kids needing her more. But walking into that hospital, all she wanted to do was take care of her son, no matter what. Whatever he needed, she would be there without a word of complaint. The tears began anew. God, I'm sorry, she cried. I've been selfish, but I know I would do anything for my kids. Forgive me that it took my son being in pain to remember how much they need me. I'm sorry, God. Thank you for protecting him and giving me more time to take care of him. She paused and sniffled. God, I am tired though. But I don't think it should feel like this. I've considered my job as a mother to be such a burden, and I don't want to feel that way. She sat up on her bed and began digging through the drawer in her nightstand. It took a minute to find it buried deep in the drawer, but she finally found it. Her Bible. She opened to the back in the concordance, where she could look up verses by topic. She remembered a verse about children and wanted to find it. She flipped through a few different verses involving children before she came to the one she was looking for. Psalm chapter 127 verses 3-5, Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. Children are a heritage from the Lord, she repeated out loud. God, you have given me a great gift in my children. You have wonderful plans for them, and I want to be a part of that. Forgive me for taking that for granted, and teach me how to raise them in a way that is honoring to you. She hung her head as a face came to mind. Sam. He had stood in that hospital, brave and strong. He had talked with Benja so kindly, and he had been so gentle to lead her out to a chair when she couldn't do it anymore. Izzy sighed. I don't really want to do this alone, she thought. I never planned for you to do it alone. The still small voice was gentle and kind. Not accusing. Not condemning. Only encouraging and speaking truth. God never wanted her to do this alone. But in that moment, she knew that she had been looking to the wrong person to help her. God, I have fought and fought because I wanted Sam to help me. I wanted him to come alongside me and support me, instead of talking down to me and letting me do all the work. But I've been trying to do it on my own, not just without him, but without you. Izzy's eyes filled with tears, but this time it wasn't painful tears, it was tears of relief. God, I don't want to do this alone. I want to follow you. I want to walk the path that you have planned for me. Lord, show me what that is. What do you want me to do? I have never changed. Izzy knew that God had never left her. He had always been right there. She was the one who had wandered off from him. Izzy sighed as realization hit. And Sam has been here too. Maybe not in the way I wanted him to be at first. But he has always worked hard to provide for us. And every moment since I told him to move out, he has been fighting for our marriage, all while I've been trying to walk away. She buried her face in her hands. God, please don't let it be too late. I've pushed and pushed Sam away. But I need him, our boys need him, and I know it's always been your plan for us to be together. Even since high school. Lord, I surrender to your plan for me. Whatever it is. I don't need to find myself. I know who I am because I am yours. Izzy physically felt as if a weight had come off of her. She stood from the bed and felt instead of the weight that a peace washed over her. One she couldn't explain, but that she knew was from God. Lord, I pray that you would make a way for Sam to be home more. But even if you don't, I want Sam to be my husband. I pray that you would give me the strength to stick to the commitment that I made in my marriage and help us find a way to work things out. Together. 26. Sam had been nervous all day. But he felt a sense of peace and calm as he walked into his boss's office just after 4 o'clock. He had never thought he would walk in and tell his boss of 11 years that he was quitting. Sam had come to feel like he belonged here, and moving up in the company had only solidified that feeling. But I belong with my family, he reminded himself as he walked into the office. The meeting didn't take long. Sam told his boss he appreciated all he had done for him and thanked him for the promotion. But I have to turn it down, he said firmly. Sam, you're joking. This is the next step in your career. The man shook his head. I didn't think I needed to tell you, but you should know that I see you sitting here in my chair one day. But at what cost? Sam looked him straight in the eyes. What do you mean, Sam? Sir, I don't mean any disrespect, but this company has robbed me of a lot. I have given and given because I thought it was the best thing for my career. And because I thought my career was a good thing for my family. But it turns out, all I did was spend a lot of time away from them when they needed me most. I have to fight for my marriage and my family now. And I can't do that long distance anymore. Thank you again for the opportunity. But no thank you. With that, Sam stood and walked out the door. An hour later, he had cleaned out his desk and taken his one box of belongings to his car. But if he thought he had been nervous to walk into his boss's office, it had been nothing compared to his nerves about going home to Izzy. He pulled in the driveway and whispered a quick prayer before getting out. God, please prepare her to hear what I have to say. And give me the words to say it right. He climbed out and walked slowly to the front door. He opened it quietly, trying to sneak in. He was hoping the boys might be distracted so he could talk to Izzy alone first. He found her in the kitchen. She wore an apron and was just pulling a dish out of the oven. If he wasn't mistaken, he smelled his favorite chicken dish. He stood at the counter and waited until she turned to see him there. Sam, she said cheerfully, her smile lighting up her face in a way he hadn't seen in a while. She set the dish on the counter and came to put her arms around his neck. She pulled back from the hug and her eyes met his. Hi, she said. Hi, Sam said, the surprise at her welcome showing on his face. It smells good in here. Chicken spaghetti, she said with a smile. Sam smiled at her, hoping that was a good sign. We need to talk. Yes, we do, she said. Sam took her hand and led her to the kitchen table where he took a seat facing her. He held both of her hands in his as he looked her in the eyes and spoke. Izzy. She held up her hand to him. No, Sam, let me go first. He didn't want to, but finally nodded. All right. Izzy took a deep breath and let it out. Yesterday was scary to me in so many ways. I was afraid for Benja, of course, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized I was afraid I might have lost him. And it made me realize that I haven't been thankful for what I have. Our children are a gift to us, but I have considered it a burden to be their mom. She paused as tears filled her eyes, but she pressed on. I don't want to live like that. Sam reached up and brushed a tear away with his thumb. I know. Izzy squeezed her eyes shut as she seemed overcome with emotion. Sam sat silently waiting for her to be ready to continue. She regained her composure and spoke. God and I had a long talk last night. Really? Sam raised his eyebrows. Yes. I realize now that not only have I been selfish, but I have been trying to do all of this on my own. Without you and without God. And I can't do it anymore. It's all too much. Too overwhelming, and I don't want to be alone. I want to do whatever God wants me to do. And I want to serve my children by taking care of them and loving them. And I want to serve. She met his gaze as she paused. Yes? Sam asked. I want to serve you too. Izzy sniffed. Sam, I've been going about this all the wrong way. I was waiting for you to be helpful and serve me, but I haven't stopped to think about how hard you work and what you might need from me. And that you were already serving our family by working so hard. I'm sorry, Sam. And even when you have made changes and tried to help me, I've been such a brat. Can you ever forgive me? Her tear-filled eyes met his, pleading with him. Sam smiled at her softly and gently. Izzy, of course. I love you. I wasn't handling things well either. Yes, I was working hard, but so were you. We have both been overwhelmed and exhausted, and we should be working through that together, instead of taking it out on each other. You're right. I want to work things out. And I'm sorry I have taken for granted that you work hard to provide for us. I know you're doing it for our family. And even though I want to have you at home, if the new position is good for us, and you think it's what you should do, I will support you in that decision. Sam grinned from ear to ear. Izzy, thank you for saying that. That means the world to me. He stopped and cleared his throat. But there's something I need to tell you about that. Izzy, I didn't take the offer of the promotion. Izzy's eyes were wide. You didn't, she nearly whispered. No, in fact. Sam looked her straight in the eyes and placed his hands on either side of her face. I quit. If it was possible, Izzy's eyes opened even wider, and her hand flew to her mouth, knocking Sam's hands away. What? Sam held up his hands to calm her. Now, it's all right. Let me explain. All right, but do it quickly. I can't take any more suspense. I knew that I didn't want to take the promotion. I can't be away from you and the boys that much. So the promotion wasn't an option for me, and if I didn't take the promotion, there wasn't really a need for me to stay with the company. There's nowhere else for me to go there. So you quit. Today? Izzy asked. Yes, I did. Izzy put her hand to her forehead, and the other she placed on the kitchen table to balance herself. I feel dizzy, she said. Sam reached out and took her hands again. But it's all right. Because I have another job. What? Izzy stood at this news. Are you serious? Yep. Sam stood with her and grinned ear to ear. Maybe you could have started with that. What would be the fun in that? Sam teased. So what is the new job? Technical assistant for an accounting firm downtown. I actually helped put in their systems a couple of years ago. I'll work in an office from 9 to 5 every day, and I'll be home for dinner and no Saturdays. Really? Izzy raised her eyebrows. Really? So what's the catch? I'll basically be starting over. I'll be the low man on the totem pole. And Izzy, I won't be making as much money to start out with. He watched for her reaction. Her face twitched, but she still seemed calm. How do you feel about that? She sighed. We'll make it work. I would rather have you here. I'm so glad to hear you say that. Maybe I can find a part-time job while the boys are at school. I could still go through with my real estate license. Izzy offered. I've been thinking about that. Is that something you really want to do? Izzy shrugged. I don't know. Maybe. I might be good at it. I think you could be good at it if it's something you really want to do. But have you thought about looking for something you would really enjoy doing? Maybe something with art? Izzy looked at him. Really? I haven't even thought of that. I think you should look into it. You are such a talented artist, Iz. Maybe you could teach art classes or sell paintings or something. Thanks, Sam. I really appreciate that you think that. I'll consider that. Sam took Izzy in his arms then, but you're right. We'll make it work, together. We might have to make some sacrifices financially. But I want to be home with you and the boys. So if we have to make sacrifices, that's what we will do. I agree, Izzy said. Sam couldn't contain himself anymore. He pulled her close and his lips met hers in a fast and furious way. Izzy responded to him in the same way, kissing him until they were both breathless, and remembered the boys in the other room. Izzy put her hands on his chest and leaned back to look in his eyes. She seemed reluctant to stop, but cleared her throat as she said, I think dinner is getting cold. I don't care, Sam said as he leaned down to kiss her again. Izzy laughed, loud and long, and Sam could feel her laughter against his chest and happiness from head to toe. Izzy, I love you. And I always will. I love you too, Sam. Thank you for reminding me. Always. 27. 2 days after their happy reunion, Sam and Izzy, along with the boys, walked into Jim and Gladys' house hand in hand. The family was all coming over for Saturday night dinner. It was a casual night, but Sam and Izzy wanted to share their happy news with everyone. Once everyone was gathered at the house, Jim called everyone to gather for prayer. Izzy enjoyed the familiarity of that, and felt glad that she was still a part of this family. As Jim called everyone's attention, Sam interrupted him. Dad, can I say something? Jim shook his head. This is becoming too familiar. One of my sons always likes to interrupt me. He laughed. Sorry, Dad. But I wanted to share with everyone at once. Sam took a deep breath and blew it out. He seemed a little nervous. I know some of you know and have been praying for us. But Izzy and I have been going through a little rough patch. I won't go into all of the details with all the little ears in the cornfield. He used their family way of saying they shouldn't talk about it in front of the kids. But what it boils down to is we've both been busy and tired and haven't put each other first. We've spent some time praying and working through it, and we know that God wants us to work through it together. We've both decided our marriage vows are important and worth sticking to. And we want to recommit ourselves to those vows. He smiled at Izzy as he snuggled her underneath his arm. We will also be attending counseling with Pastor Owen to help us talk through how we can do that better. So we just wanted to say thank you for praying for us, and don't stop now. But we think we've walked through the worst of it, and we're moving forward. Izzy nodded alongside him. Oh, and also, Sam got a new job and won't be traveling anymore. Cheers went up around the room. So, Gladys spoke up, did you say you want to recommit as in? She waited for Sam and Izzy to fill in the blank. Yes, we would like to have a recommitment ceremony at the church. Does that mean that I can plan a party? Sam and Izzy laughed, along with everyone else. Sam asked, raising his eyebrows to her. Sure. Izzy threw her arms up. Why not? She smiled at Sam. Everyone talked at once, with ideas and encouragement to Sam and Izzy. Finally, Jim raised his hand again, and everyone quieted down. Can I pray now so we can eat? He asked. The family laughed and bowed their heads. God, thank you for our family. Thank you most of all for Sam and Izzy, and for bringing them to yourself and keeping them together. Help us all to honor you in our relationships. And bless this food. Amen. Amen. Everyone shouted. Izzy felt like a newly engaged couple as she held Sam's hand through the food line. She helped fix the boys' plates and got them situated at the kids' table while Sam fixed her plate and took it to sit in the dining room. Izzy found herself next to Peyton, with Spencer on the other side of Peyton. I'm so excited for y'all, Peyton sounded like her cheerleader self. Thank you. Izzy was practically beaming. But she sobered as she looked at Peyton. "Oh, Peyton, I hope we're not upstaging you with your wedding. We will be happy to wait until after you guys, or whatever you want. And our ceremony will be very low-key. I don't mind Gladys planning a party, but we weren't really planning on that. I don't want to steal your spotlight." Peyton waved her hand in the air. "Don't apologize. It's totally fine," Peyton assured her. "Honestly, I'm just glad to see you guys working through this." Peyton lowered her voice for only Izzy. "I didn't want to say anything, but I think everyone had noticed that things weren't exactly smooth for you guys. I was nervous because we're getting married so young too. And people always say, Sam and Izzy did it, you can too." Peyton bit her lip, as if she wasn't sure how to continue. Izzy put her hand on Peyton's arm. "It's all right, Peyton. I understand what you're saying. It has been hard. And I will say that getting married young meant that we didn't know all the things we would need to work through later on. But let me tell you this." She looked from Peyton to Spencer to make sure she had their attention. "Communication is so important. Sam and I stopped talking to each other about what we wanted and needed. And we stopped putting each other first. And I can say for myself that I wasn't walking close to the Lord. That was really where things began to fall apart. So I don't think it matters if you get married when you're 20 or 50. You have to follow the Lord. And you have to communicate with each other." Izzy gave a little laugh. "And it helps if you're not too selfish. But really, you guys will be all right." Peyton reached out and hugged Izzy. "Thank you. You have no idea how much that means to me." Izzy smiled at her sort of sister-in-law. Then she turned to Sam, who had sat beside her, silently listening to the conversation. She reached out and squeezed his hand. She felt thankful that maybe God could use their story to encourage others. But mostly, she felt happy to still be doing life with her favorite person. The one she had loved since high school. Epilogue. Izzy stood in front of the mirror in the bride's room at the church and applied a coat of lipstick. She stared at her reflection and couldn't help but see how happy she looked. She felt like she and Sam had both walked through a desert, but they had come out on the other side to find fresh water. She smiled at herself, and the look of delight reached all the way to her eyes. She thought back over the last few months and how they had sat in Pastor Owen's office for counseling once a week. It hadn't been the easiest thing. Lining up childcare every week, getting out the door, Sam usually coming straight from work without eating dinner. But it had been worth it. Not every session had been full of smiles, and many had involved tears. Discussing past hurts and encouraging and forgiving each other had been hard at times. But Izzy knew without a shadow of a doubt that it was the best thing for them. She had decided that even if it was hard, staying with Sam was what she chose to do. Now she wore a classy ivory satin dress that fell just below her knees. The long sleeves were made of lace and made her feel pretty and mature. It was completely different than the wedding gown she had worn as a young bride. That one had involved a lot of billowing tulle. But this felt like the woman she had grown to become, and celebrated her relationship with Sam growing up too. Gladys bustled into the room and hugged her daughter-in-law. "Izzy, you look absolutely radiant." "Thank you," Izzy said. She blushed. She wasn't used to people paying this much attention to her. But Sam had told her this was their day to celebrate, so she was trying to enjoy it. "I'm about to head to my seat, but I wanted to see you for just a moment. Izzy, I'm so proud of you and Sam. You are a wonderful example to any young couple, and I know that God is going to use you together." "Thanks, I think so too," Izzy said, and she meant it. Pastor Owen had asked them to visit the young married couple's Sunday school class to share their story. Izzy didn't feel like anyone should follow in their steps, but she hoped that it would be an encouragement to others. Gladys hugged Izzy one last time. "I'll see you in there." Izzy smiled as she watched her mother-in-law leave the room and whispered a prayer of thanks for her. Izzy's own parents were in attendance today, but they had come in at the last minute and took their seats in the sanctuary. They said they were happy for Sam and Izzy, but they didn't understand the need for a ceremony. But Izzy understood, and she didn't worry too much about what her parents thought. There was a knock on the door, and Peyton stuck her head in. "Ready to get started?" she asked. The two had grown close over the last few months as they met and talked about being married at a young age. Peyton felt that the counseling Izzy and Sam were going through was helpful to them too, and Izzy had been open to share with her about what they were learning. Izzy also felt like it was refreshing to see Peyton and Spencer walking through the newness of young love, and it reminded her of herself and Sam in their early days. And that was a good thing. "I'm ready, tell Sam I'm coming." Peyton winked. "Will do." She closed the door and left Izzy alone. "God," Izzy prayed. "Thank you for this second chance. Thank you that I'm not missing out on our second act together. Bless our marriage." She opened her eyes and checked her appearance one last time. "And please don't let me trip down the aisle." In some ways, Sam felt the same as he had years ago, waiting for Izzy to walk down the aisle. But in some ways, it couldn't be more different. He felt full of love for her and joy that they were promising to be together forever. But today he felt calm instead of nervous, and sure of himself instead of afraid that he would mess up the vows. He walked to his place beside Pastor Owen and looked out over the church sanctuary. His parents sat in the front row, and his brothers and their families filled up the couple of rows behind them. Izzy's parents sat a few rows back, and a few close friends had come to join them as well. Sam glanced back at the cross on the back wall of the church. It had been very important to him and Izzy to have this ceremony in the church. Their wedding, while beautiful and meaningful, had been outside at a wedding venue. It had been exactly what they wanted then, but they both wanted this ceremony to represent their commitment to each other and their desire to put God first in their marriage. The music began, and Sam turned to face the back doors. When Izzy walked through, Sam's face broke into a wide smile. He thought she was more beautiful now than she was on their wedding day. He couldn't contain his excitement as he watched her walking towards him. He took several steps down the aisle to meet her. He looped her arm through his and turned to walk the rest of the way together. "You're supposed to wait for me at the end," Izzy whispered to him. "I couldn't wait any longer," Sam said with a smile. "Besides, I think we can walk together. That's what this is about, isn't it?" "Yes, it is." When they reached the front of the church, they turned and held each other's hands as Pastor Owen spoke. He shared a bit of their story, which everyone in attendance knew, and he spoke of God's faithfulness to them. Finally, he asked them to repeat after him in turn. Together they vowed to love, honor, and cherish each other as long as they both shall live. Now Sam and Izzy would like to invite their children to join them, Pastor Owen said. Izzy and Sam turned and held their hands out as Jim and Gladys prompted the boys to walk to the front. Pastor Owen spoke. "Today is about Sam and Izzy renewing their vows to each other, but also about the Pierce family as a covenant family before God. Sam is going to pray for their family now." Sam cleared his throat as he placed his arms around the shoulders of his sons. "God, thank you for today. Thank you for Izzy and how you have brought us back together. Give us grace as we walk with you and with each other for the rest of our lives. And bless our family." Sam paused as emotion crept into his voice. He cleared his throat and continued as a tear ran down his cheek. "Be with us and guide us in following you as a family. Give me and Izzy wisdom as we raise our boys. Raise them to be godly men who follow after you. Thank you for this indescribable gift. Amen." His family huddled together as they hugged each other, and Sam and Izzy both wiped away a few tears. The boys went back to their seats. Pastor Owen smiled as he said, "Well, I don't think I can top that." Everyone laughed lightly. "So I won't try. But it is my honor and privilege to introduce, for now and forever, Samuel and Isabel Pierce. Sam, you may kiss your bride." Sam's eyes met Izzy's, and he tenderly reached out and took her face in his hands. Gently he leaned down, and their lips met with passion and promise. When he leaned back, he looked in her eyes and knew he saw the future they had always wanted. Ready for more faith and love? Read She's story in the next book, Come With Me. Click here to read from your favorite retailer now. Shep Kelly is starting his senior year of college with so much going for him. But he doesn't have the one thing he wants to graduate with: someone to share life with. Bailey Holmes feels like she's limping across the finish line of school, but looking ahead to the life of raising her daughter on her own. After her high school boyfriend left her pregnant and alone, she doesn't allow anyone to get close to her. When the two are paired up as lab partners, Shep begins to see a possibility, but Bailey keeps him at arm's length. As their friendship progresses into something more, Bailey begins to open up. But when baseball threatens to take him away, she's afraid she will be left alone and hurt all over again. Bailey will have to decide between opening her heart to move forward or closing herself off forever. Click here to purchase directly from the author.